Mara. Here. Kurt. Here. Cohen.
Here.
Shanahan.
Here.
Cristaldi. Carlton. Here. Hewitt.
Here.
And thank you. So now we'll go to public comment. Anybody have public comment? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The privilege to speak for us. There were just some things that last meeting I think I need to voice my opinion about. Is this a full-time, excuse me, the city council a full-time position? Well, there was times when I was at council during the week, and there was tumbleweed rolling to the office. It was either Maniscalco or Charlie Miranda were there. There is times when you don't see anyone in this office except for Thursday. Does that mean it's not a 40-hour week? Some of the talking points were made last week about ribbon cutting, photo ops, and by his own admission, throwing beads at a parade. Is that done, Mr. Christian? They're not city employees. They don't work for the city. As we saw a few years ago when two councilmen were resigned, they had nothing to do with HR in the city. If it's going to be more of a full-time position, there needs to be more time here so the public can come down and voice their opinion. Whether it's at night, another day of the week, separate CRA and city council. But if it's going to be a full-time position, it needs to be a 40-hour week. And how are you going to regulate since they're not city employees? There's no cards to punch, there's no laptop login. Pay raises, I agree, there needs to be some sort of COLA. Annual increases. But how many here, don't raise your hands, how many here are employers? Can any employee walk into your office and say, I want a 40% increase in my wage? How many are employees? Can you walk into your boss's office and say, I want a 40% raise in my salary? There needs to be cost of living. One of the things here, each city councilman gets a perk or per diem for traveling expenses and other things, miscellaneous. So it's not just you're digging out of your own pocket. There's one council member that consistently gives those perks and per diems back to the city of Tampa. The city council attorney hired by the city council. They act as an advisor. There's not much legal action that I remember the city council attorney taking. So when we say that this is a job, remember, yes, some people do put in 40 hours a week. They belong to other boards, such as Tampa Bay Regional Planning, such as Florida League of Cities, such as Local Roadways, but not every council person does that. There's a couple of council people that only recently have joined these different boards. I know that there are 6 people in this room that are going to be running for city council. I just ask you, are you going to give up your day job? Can you do 2 40-hour-a-week jobs? This is not a job, it's a call. And if you think it's a job, you're in the wrong profession. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else for public comment? Come on up, maybe, really, girl. What's your name?
Hi, so my name is Maida Martinez, and so people know in the community as Navy. I do live here in the city of Tampa in Ybor Heights, and I am an active community leader. I'm the president of our neighborhood association and watch group, and I also sit as a East Tampa Community Advisory Committee for the East Tampa Community Redevelopment Area. So I've been coming to these meetings and I've been sitting back and listening, and I wanted to revisit 2 topics. Sorry, I don't have my notes with me because I came right from work here. One, I know there's been discussion back and forth about whether or not city leaders should live within the boundaries of the city of Tampa. Or if we should open up a broader talent pool to bring in more talent. I see both sides of it. I do want to say that as a resident here in Tampa, I do believe that there is some, it is important for us to consider that the city leaders do live in the city, because if you live here, breathe here, walk here, play here, work here, there's a higher level of personal interest and accountability because you're here and you see what goes on day to day versus someone who lives in Pinellas County. Especially for those departments that are directly impacting quality of life every day, like Parks and Rec, code enforcement, stormwater, and mobility. Again, if you walk these streets and you see the flooding and you see the vacant homes and you see that code enforcement's not doing their job, and you may be living next to a vacant home that's inviting criminal activity. If you live here, you may have a higher level of interest and personal investment in doing something about that. The other point that I want to make is, there was a topic of discussion about whether or not city council should have the power, investigative powers, right? So city council represents us, the people, we vote them in, us, the residents here. When we have a grievance, we go to them. And we count on them to advocate for us. If we're seeing some issues with maybe Parks and Rec, they're not doing their part, they're not following through on projects that they promised the neighborhood. My neighborhood is one of those. We didn't vote that person in, so we have no teeth to hold them accountable to delivering on the promises that they made to the residents here. The taxpayers are paying for the improvements in these parks. Code enforcement is another big one for quality of life. I do believe that right now, if we have a grievance, we have no mechanism of action to hold these leaders accountable. Zero. We don't vote them in, and it reports to the mayor. And city council's hands are tied, and they do hear a lot of grievances from the residents. Public comment, most of the public comments, no matter what part of the city you live in, it's a quality of life issue. Whether it's sidewalks, whether it's flooding, whether it's vacant properties, whether it's nuisance corner stores, it's a problem. So again, I sit on a CRA community advisory committee. And I hear these complaints all the time, so I just felt compelled to say that to you, and just to kind of give you a real world example of how that leadership directly impacts me and everyone around me day to day.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. All right, I'd like to move that we approve the probably minutes from April 14th, 2026.
Someone. Sorry.
The movement properly seconded, session.
Nice. You know.
Yeah. All right, all in favor, say aye. People, anybody? I'll have it.
Jonathan,
Next.
thank you. In terms of agenda for today, it's pretty standard. We do have Mr. Gerald here to help us fill in some blanks around one of the sections, so thank you for coming. I'll have you here in just a second. I've also taken some time to capture all of the written public comments we've received. I want to make sure we don't lose sight of those. I know they've been in the background, and had access to those. But I did summarize the ones that got coming into writing. So that you can all consider whether or not that will raise the level of some recommendations or changes to what we've done. So that's what we're doing today. Again, pretty standard stuff. We did make progress last week. We didn't quite get it, but we made some progress. Hopefully today we can finish Article 2. We have a single item on 4, a single item on 5, and then maybe we complete Article 6 if we find that to be standard and not too. Not interesting enough for a long discussion. It is, we'll keep doing what we're doing, but at least hopefully start Article 6 today. As I mentioned, 2.04, you have one request outstanding with a number of components, which Dennis will help us with. We have a simple, easy one on 2.05, and just two here. We can get through all that, we move to 6, we start breaking new ground. We haven't done that in a while. Luckily, we're not doing what we did early on, where we came to a stopping point and went way ahead and then to go back. So good news is we're kind of all clearing up some things before. So that's where we are on that. So these were the questions that I took down around section 2.04. I'll read those and then ask Mr. Majero, the CCFO, to come up. We were interested in a little bit more information around the budget process and how it works. We were interested in salary setting for both the mayor and the council members. And how those are adjusted, but particularly adjusted for council. Related how our council members classified. And then there was a request to get a sense for what the salaries have been over time. And again, that's probably the most data rich one, but any guidance there. So those are the questions I grabbed from us last time. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to the group, Mr. Ruggiero, and you can escape them and answer their questions, and I'll stand to the side if you want to come on the front.
Good evening, Commission. Thanks for having me. Yeah, absolutely. Sure appreciate it. And thank you for your time and your efforts, and I do appreciate taking time to listen to me. I can, what I will try to do is keep it abbreviated, and those people talk quite a bit about these particular subjects, but I can just go, oops, I can just go right down the list. All right, how's the budget process work? Again, abbreviated. Right around after the first of the year, we'll start pre-prepping the budget with the mayor, identifying priorities, talking to the departments, getting via the mayor some community feedback. And as we're doing this, we'll brief, and this is optional, depending on how in-depth the city council members want to get, we'll brief the city council members to what are their priorities, what are their concerns. All lead to kind of an amalgamation of what the department priorities are, city council priorities, the mayor's priorities, and the fiscal constraints that we think we're going to be facing. In fact, we're in the midst of the latter part of that right now. Even though we adopt the budget September 1st, it's only a couple of months before we're right back at it again. We started this pre-process maybe around February. Once we start crafting a draft budget with the mayor, again, we'll offer the opportunity for individual briefings to the city council members. By statute, the mayor's got to give her recommended budget to council in mid-August, but we typically are a month earlier than that. We've gotten earlier and earlier over the last few years because, well, we're getting bigger and bigger, and it's getting more and more complicated. So not only has council indicated a desire to have more time to review the information we get, more time to ask us questions and get feedback. And I think the community has asked for the same thing. It's a $2 billion budget. Give us some time to look it over before we are compelled to come back for the public hearings, 2 public hearings in September. I think we're getting better and better. I'm a little biased though, right? Since I'm kind of running the show on the oral side, but we've got a lot of positive feedback from city council members too. Now, once the mayor gives her recommended budget, that's what it's called by statute, then that's the opportunity for city council to opine on how much they like, or no, I'm sorry, I didn't see you behind there, Sarah. Hold on. Keep you hearing. All right. Whether how much they like or don't like that particular budget. And the charter, of course, as you've seen, offers city council particular remedies to try to correct what they don't like about the budget. And then, of course, it offers the mayor opportunity, but veto, et cetera, et cetera. And this is primarily through those 2 particular public hearings, those 2 mechanisms. Again, in July, we give the budget over to city council. It pretty much becomes their budget at that point. They'll tell you that now it's all right. Let us digest it and get back to you when we have a public hearings. City council also has a number of workshops And we typically agree to do those concurrently with the workshops that we like. In other words, more bang for your buck. Let's get in there, let's talk about it with the public, let's bring the mayoral, the administration perspective, let's bring the city council's perspective. And those have varied from, maybe 2 workshops to 3 workshops. Culminating ideally in that second public hearing in late September, adopt the budget the next fiscal year. Couple caveats that I like to mention, and maybe all know this, and I don't want to be condescending, but just by its very nature, even the approved budget is rather tentative, right? Because we're adopting a budget for the next year, and it'll be months, literally months before we know what happened in the year we're in. So it's all very tentative, it's a plan, right? Just like any plan, it's going to change. For example, the mayor and city council changed last year's budget $200 million over the course of that year. So it's designed to be fluid, flexible, and change. And of course, you've seen those particular flexibilities in the chart. It has to be balanced. And again, maybe you all know this, but unlike the federal government, we can't deficit spend. For every dollar that we reasonably believe we're going to spend, I got to reasonably believe I'm going to bring in. Okay, am I going to be right? No, it's really just a matter of how wrong I'm going to be. I've been very, very accurate, but it's not going to be dead on. I just have to have confidence that every dollar going out, I've got a dollar coming in. It's in the general fund, it's in the enterprise fund, any number of different funds. So that's typically how it works. Again, there's a lot of behind the scenes going on in terms of discussions with me, council staff, mayor's discussion with the public and council. Is that abbreviated enough for you?
Can I just ask, because I'm not familiar with the process, so the 2 public hearings are separate from the workshops?
Yes, ma'am.
So, and public can come to all of those platforms and engage on the budget if they have comments they'd like to share.
Yes, ma'am.
And the public hearings are conducted by the mayor or the council?
Council.
Okay, and are they held here, or are they held around the city?
They're held in city council.
Okay. And when is what's the fiscal year here? Is it July to July, like?
It starts October 1st.
October
And then
1st.
September 3rd.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
So when it started the conversation on the budget was 2.04, you see that's the title. In it, it talks about adding staff. It says the city council will create and fill other staff positions and goes on. And however, such other staff positions must be approved by affirmative vote of no fewer than 5 of the city council members. And funds for such a position must be found, and then it says the city council's budget. And we had some dialogue 2 weeks ago. Is there a separate designated city council budget?
Okay. No, and let me elaborate on that.
Please.
It's the same document for a brief period of time, right? It's what the mayor provides, that's the recommended budget, and then it becomes the city council budget. 2 different entities in my head, same document, except.
Okay. Yeah, but it's one overall budget. It's not, there's no separate. Yeah, if I looked at the budget, I'm assuming that the city council doesn't have a separate whole section, or maybe it does.
No, it doesn't.
Okay. And then what we talked about in this context was, okay, you can have investigations, and the question came up, what if you needed some temporary assistance in an investigation? This is 2.14. You needed to add a staff member, whatever, but it was a temporary staff. How do you do that? And then you look back at 2.04. Is there a way, would there be a way for city council to do an inch here? I mean, if they needed some funds for something, how do they go about getting it? It wasn't maybe in the initial budget, it's not a line item, and they needed that temporary staff, an investigator, an outside lawyer, whatever they needed, where would they get those funds?
Understood. Ideally, they'll look within the city council budget, and depending upon the extent of the assistance they need, they may or not have it in their operating accounts. Okay, because they do have an operating account in addition to their salary. But if they don't, or they anticipate that they won't have enough funding, then they'll come to me or my shop and say, hey, where are there either unanticipated revenues coming in or unanticipated less expenditures than we projected? And again, that's part of that $200 million. If memory serves, it was about 180 different transactions last year, adjusting the budget $200 million. So we literally adjust the budget every city council meeting. So that would be the preferred and probably most organized mechanism for providing that assistance.
And the last question I have on this, this issue. If city council, when the budget process starts, is there an ability to designate whether you call it a reserve, a contingency bucket, or something along those lines? You know, and what we're getting at here as a group is, you know, you've got a city council. They have this investigative ability, they can add staff. Could you, instead of having to come mid-year, could you, in the budgeting process, say, we're gonna designate X number of dollars, and in the event that we hire outside counsel, we may not have to, God bless, we don't, but if we do, the money's in the budget. Can that be done?
We absolutely could do that. The only caveat I would offer is when you appropriate with city council, and again, city council appropriates every dollar. When city council appropriates an amount of money to a reserve, it requires an action on their part to take that money from reserve and spend it on something else. So they'd have to kind of see it twice. We cannot spend from a reserve. We can hold the funding in abeyance, but city council would require a proactive act on the part of city council to take it from the reserve and allocate it to the appropriate place. Just another bureaucratic step, but I want to make you aware of that.
Thank you.
So
I'm sorry.
200 million is 10% of your overall budget. But is that an annual? I mean, it sounds like you came up with 10%, so it had to be somewhere. Were they open FTEs? Are they just open unallocated? You have unallocated funds in some sort of a fund that's able to move. I mean, that's a significant amount of a budget to have flex on, I think.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think
And is that normal? Like, is that an annual 10% out of your budget every year that is?
looking back, just going from memory, I think it was an aberration that high, but I am confident saying we adjust the budget at least on it. And that entails a couple of different things. And again, don't let me go down a rabbit hole. I've talked about this all night, but one of the aberrations in fiscal year 25 were new standards from the Government Accounting Standards Board, which required us to take 30-odd million that was designated as an operating expense, redesignate it as a long-term liability or debt. Make a long story short, the super accountants viewed things like software licensing, things like that as debt. Do we issue debt? No, but it's a long-term liability that we've made an agreement. Unfortunately, or importantly, depending on how you look at it, the mechanism that we use is transferring it from here to another. So you get these inter-fund transfers that artificially inflate the change. It had a net zero impact. So you had that. You also have, and typically we'll do this twice a year, at the mid-year, which we're coming up on, we'll provide a mid-year report to city council and to the public. Again, because when we adopt the budget, we got a pretty good idea as to how the current year is going, but we really don't know. It takes us months to close the book. It's a $2 billion organization. So we'll provide city council, this is what happened last year, and based on the first 6 months of this year, that's what this year is looking like. And we'll, for instance, we've got unanticipated revenues. Do we want to appropriate them? We have unforeseen expenditures. We want to account for that. We are on track, for example, to spend less than we anticipated. Do we want to reallocate that? So by no means are we holding anything in abeyance to adjust it later. It's just that at this scale, even small changes at the outset, have a significant impact after 6, 7, 8, 9 months. That kind of answers your question.
We still don't know where you have, like, do you have every dollar of revenue is allocated in the budget that gets passed?
Yes, ma'am.
And there's nothing in an unallocated fund?
there are two things that I would, that I'd highlight, and depending on your definition of unallocated. And again, don't let me get too wonky here. We have bona fide reserves that we set aside for a particular purpose, personnel reserves, for instance. We have personnel reserves for retirements, personal leave, things like that. And then we have a number of different fund balances. And I'll give you an example, a hurricane fund. Now, technically, it's an emergency fund, but here in Tampa, it's a hurricane fund. And we set that funding aside, we don't appropriate, because there's no need to yet. And, you know, following the storms, for instance, of 2024, we appropriated that funding so we can use it, for example, as we wait for the FEMA reimbursement. FEMA reimbursement is great, but it takes years. We have an unassigned fund balance, which is basically our savings account. So every dollar is accounted for, and the overwhelming majority of dollars are appropriated, but some are set aside in the savings account. There are restricted savings account, assigned savings account, committed savings, depending upon the authority it takes to appropriate that money. Sometimes it's by charter, sometimes it's by council.
And unspent dollars at the end of your fiscal year go where?
They fall to fund balances. You have water fund balance. And much of that funding is by design. For instance, in the general fund, we want to make sure to establish a baseline for that savings account. So unspent funding, and again, don't let me go too deep, but our savings account here is ideally tied to our operating expenses. So as our operating expenses go up, proportionally our savings account goes up. So for example, if there's unallocated funding, we need to bring that portion up, we'll put it in the savings account.
And what's the compensation increases for like city employees, police chief, fires, whoever, you know, is there a same 3% COLA every year for them?
It varies. Typically, you know, in a perfect world, yes, it's about 3%, but we'll tie it to a couple of different things. First, of course, especially given our recent history, would be inflation. And we had, as everybody knows, we had some significant aberrations in the inflation tied to, typically we'll tie it to the Tampa MSA, Metropolitan Statistical Area, CPI, okay, Consumer Price Index, et cetera, et cetera. And you had a perfect storm just a couple of years ago. Y'all probably know this. You had the pandemic, you had rising inflation, you also had time to negotiate with all four different collective bargaining groups, right? So you did see from a historical perspective a significant aberration in what those raises were, those negotiated raises. Quick differentiation here from the merit or step raises. Typically, historically, two different raise mechanisms here. Negotiated raise, roughly based on inflation, and then a step or merit based on performance. So that's a long way of saying I would agree, typically maybe 3%, but it's kind of looked like an EKG over the last couple of years.
Stephen?
Yes, well, I have another question. So.
Well, so the first is to clarify, so if I may, can I read you a section of the charter and ask you to tell me what you're thinking?
It's dangerous ground.
I know, I apologize in advance. The city council may create and fill other staff positions for the purpose of assisting in the performance of its legislative function. However, such other staff positions must be approved by an affirmative vote of 5 members of the city council. Funds for such positions must be found in the city council's budget, and any additional cost thereof must first be approved by the mayor. And I think that was what Shafina's question was. City council's budget, we were trying to figure out, does that mean the $2.7 million cost center for city council, or is it a $2.6 billion city budget?
No, thanks for connecting the dots. I'll probably have to defer to an attorney for that. The way you can get Dennis's interpretation, the way it's written, I would confine it to the smaller of the two. But again, when the mayor gives the recommended budget to the city council, there's a school of thought out there, right? City council that is their budget now, so I have to defer to legal on that.
Yeah, well, I don't know, we thought about it from your perspective, which is it's the post-council budget, not. It's the post-council citywide budget, after council touches it, it becomes their budget, that's the interest.
I need to clarify, but yeah, I made that.
I'm glad that you said that, because I wasn't thinking about it from that perspective. My second question is the 200 million, you kind of touched on this. Is that $200 million in additional revenue that was not budgeted last year? Or is that just $200 million in budget changes, moving money around?
Changes.
Okay, do you know what portion of that 200 was actually new revenue?
I do not.
Even just like a gut check, like.
I do not, but I get it to you, and
I think that's.
Yeah, that's another part of the
It's a lot of money.
And what I'd also suggest, and it's entirely up to you, if I can provide that to you, but I can also identify those actions that really didn't change, like that GASB. I mean, I can give you $30-odd million worth of changes for ACE, with really no. But don't let me make you too confident.
Yeah.
But I'll provide that. In fact, let me make a note of it, so, yeah.
I also have a question about the city council budget analyst. I imagine that person works very closely with your team.
Yes, she does.
And so I think we're all probably just a little curious of your perspective on how that's working, as it is, was recently created, and I think she's only been a couple of years so far, so. I mean, how do you think it's working? Is it helping? Is it creating more work, or, just your perspective?
I think it's working well. I think it's working well for a couple of different reasons. And I'll pat myself on the back, I'll pat city council on the back, I'll pat Ms. Pesky on the back, she's the analyst. There really is, in my opinion, a spirit of cooperation when it comes to that particular position. We were all a little, because it certainly hasn't been here since my time. I've been here 17 years, but no, where the, and I don't want to say conflict, disagreements arise based on assumptions, and that's fine, we're all professionals. Where some of the rough waters occur is, well, now this has really subsided as Ms. Kopesky gets more and more in tune and more knowledgeable of the organization. I think, am I being recorded? I think she's very sharp, I really do, she brings a wealth of experience. And as she's learned the organization more, and as we learn what her expectations are and what council's expectations are with this new resource. I mean, back in the day, it used to come to me for everything. Now they're not doing it, and that's fine. So I think overall it's worked out well, especially as we refine what the expectation is for the information that she sees. She's very motivated, her show. That answer? No, I appreciate you asking my own perspective.
Awesome.
Okay, well, you actually asked my question because I was looking at the language where it says city council budget and listening to you speak, which by the way, I watched those budget workshops and you're very talented and very professional, and it's a joy to watch you do your thing, yeah. I don't understand half of it, probably more than half of it. Mostly all of it.
Thank you.
But it's great to see you do that. So, and I'm not a finance professional, so you're probably gonna have to explain the same concept again, maybe in a different way to help me understand, but. So city council doesn't have a budget line in the overall $1 billion budget, but they have an operating cost. So were they to want to allocate funding for some future expense, just as reserve, would they just add that to their operating cost? How would that money move? And if they, and I know you answered this earlier, but if you could dumb it down for me, how would they accomplish that transfer if something were to come in the middle of the fiscal year? I know you answered this before, but just so I can understand.
Sure, I can take you through the mechanism. Again, just in a perfect world, we'll be able to plan all this out as, for example, as part of fiscal year 27 budget plan. They will set aside a reserve, whatever you want to call it, for city council unforeseen, unanticipated uses, etc. Sometime during the year, city council wants to tap that. We'll bring a financial resolution to city council, clearly indicating, hey, we're taking X amount for this, and I'm sorry, don't do this, excuse me. We're taking X amount from this reserve and putting it in, do they want to hire a professional assistance from a temporary agency? So there's an operating expense. Do they want to hire an additional bona fide position for the city of Tampa? Will that be a personnel expense? And we've got to keep track of all these things because, you know, you can't mix those two without an official act by city council. But our financial resolution, this document, merely identify that transaction, they vote, and then we make it.
So how would, in terms of process, how would that work? If there would be a need for some, like, additional funding, whatever the contingency might be. And would the council have to then identify that with their budget, they come to your office, or is there probably a collaboration that occurred?
Yeah, they can do it either way, you know, again, ideally, there'll be a collaboration, so the expectation is clear on both sides. But they can run it up through Liz Podesky, run it in my shop, which of course we fill her in. She's serving the city council. There's a couple of different ways. The upshot is we'll need the necessary information and intent to complete that financial resolution. It's my shop that creates the financial resolution. And that's how we move money in the city of Tampa. FinReds, lingo. And I'm not out there, but
Yes,
that is your question, okay, fine.
Along that same train of thought, and as Bill was talking about, a contingency for considered expenditures, let's say an investigation that they go to you, could the answer be no? We're just not, we're not gonna entertain more money for this situation.
You know, again, my understanding of the process is, and again, I'll have to go to the city attorney's office, is city council takes financial actions based on submissions from the developers. Okay. If we entered a situation where the mayor did not agree, it will be up to the mayor, and my understanding, not to provide that mechanism to take action. And my understanding is without that mechanism, they're not king.
So if the council, the budget goes, the recommended budget goes to the city council, and it becomes city council's budget. What if they wanted to add like 5 positions and they put that in their operating budget? They could do that, correct?
They can, again, my understanding, they can add and change however they want. It goes back to the mayor, or for her up or down, her down needs to go over by 5.
And so the operating budget that they're ascribed or sign, however you annotate that. How does that number come to be? Like, what is that based on? Just say 7 people, they get how much per person, or what is that number? Does it grow about over year, like by 5%, or the COLA, what do they?
If they're bona fide full-time positions, but we'll get the specifics as to what classification the position is.
You know, the operating budget for the city council.
Oh, the
How do
operating
you
budget.
determine that? How do you determine that amount that gets assigned to them?
Typically, it's a simple continuation of the existing budget. There hasn't been a great deal of demand. But if there is more demand than is typical, well, we'll take that as part of the mayor's recommended budget in front of her, for instance, and I'm making this up. Their operating budget is $70,000. Last year was $65,000, and the year before that was $60,000. Okay, it's like they want 5,000 every year. If for some reason they want 90,000, if they want 100,000, okay. And that will be part of all of the prioritization and needs that are given to the mayor in creating that revenue.
So they can't really make changes to the budget. They can make recommended changes, but it has to go back to the mayor. Okay.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
Okay. So I'm really gonna dumb it down.
And again, I'm sorry if I'm getting wrong.
No, I love it, like, I've always loved listening to you, you're so whatever you do. Which is what you were, everything you do, we'll all say the same thing, so completely true. But
Very
for my purposes of trying to understand some of the things that we were wrestling with last week. The mayor creates the budget, sends it to city council makes changes, the mayor can agree or disagree, and eventually they have to agree on the budget. Then, if there's any changes, The mayor can put things forward, but nothing can be changed. I'm looking at 702 that says no money may be dispersed from the city treasury except in pursuit of appropriations by city council. So all of those have to go to city council. So the city council can say no to the mayor. The mayor can say no to city council.
Yes, and city council sometimes does say no.
So there.
Yes, no, you know what, no, thank you, you summarized it, honestly, there's better than I.
No, I said that, I just had to take it down to a level that I.
There are opportunities for refusal on both sides,
Yeah.
and I'm sorry, let me make that clear, that will, but.
So one of the topics that we've been discussing are mid-year changes to the budget. And I have a very specific question about that, but before I ask you that, I wanted to know if you could explain the process associated with how to deal with the fund balances and maybe touch on like where that money sits and how council even finds out about it and how that sort of process has worked in the past.
No, thank you for asking that, because that process has gotten more attention in recent years. It's also gotten more and more transparent. And not that anybody, believe me, was trying to hide anything, but it's become more and more important, I think, from this council's perspective as to what's happening with these fund balances. The cash, what we invest in. Okay, like, and I'll use the unassigned fund balance as an example, our savings account. So it sits in cash, we invest in seeds, et cetera, et cetera. And we have, in the last couple of years, provided a presentation to council where it breaks out each particular fund balance, including the unassigned or savings account. It also includes, as I referenced earlier, for example, our emergency fund balance, our fund balance for insurance and claims. We have had a number, as you're probably aware, of high profile claims, the highest amounts being associated with past actions of Tampa Police Department. So we set aside a fund balance for, I mean, in my opinion, it's not it, it's when we're gonna have to pay money for a claim settlement, things like that. And we clearly identify those now. They were always there in our financial, for instance, and if you looked hard enough, you'd see in the annual comprehensive financial. But because it's not an appropriation, it's not budgeted, not a budget. What else did I, you've got committed reserves associated with inventories, you've got committed reserves associated, or assigned reserves, restricted reserves associated with POs from last year that we still have to pay. If we owe $20 million from last year, well, we gotta set that aside because we're on the hook for that. We want that separate and apart from anything that's being appropriated or considered for an emergency fund. So we identify, take on all those. So I think, especially since I've been here, we've gotten very, very clear as to where every dollar is, even though, as I explained, not every dollar is budgeted. It's that, I go off on a tangent,
Why do you present that to them?
I do.
Yeah, and what triggers that?
What has triggered that is, in the past, is a growing curiosity about what our fund balance is. And one reason I say that is we have a very strong history, or a very good history of a strong fund balance. Not all localities have it. Okay? And it is best practice to periodically review, is your savings account too low? There are plenty of localities that are way too low. Is your savings account too high? And those are gonna be different depending upon the locality. We've got, for instance, like a 23-24% savings account. They may be 2, 3, 4 months of our operating expense. I worked in localities where they would show me the door for that. I worked in localities where it's not high enough. So part of it is the acceptance of the community. How much do they want this? More rainy day, more emergencies, things like that. So there's been a magnifying glass on it. Again, I think it's led to some greater transparency, which is great, but also better discussion about what the ideal level is. And I should say, our strong history of fund balance and savings account really helped us in terms of credit rating. And that's one of the first things they always point to. We've been very, very successful in getting credit upgrades, and that's doing quite.
Yeah, I guess we're asking that question primarily because there was certainly a difference in the questions that we received. The city council doesn't, they only get one bite of the apple. In terms of being able to weigh in on the budget otherwise, and then it's are brought to them and they are unable to initiate them. And I mean, I was trying to remember back to when the fund balance, became a thing, right, that you were talking about. And I'm just, I guess I'm trying to reconcile both of those, how do those things through, obviously you'd be bringing a presentation on renewable revenue during the year, the city council feels like they can't trigger budget amendments. So I don't know if you can help us sort that out.
I can absolutely give you my
There's a discrepancy.
Yeah, I can absolutely give you my perspective. Many, not all, but many, I couldn't give you a proportion off the top of my head, but again, like 180 different financial resolutions, financial transactions that changed the budget last year. A very good amount of those were due to city council initiated action. A very good amount of those were due to mayoral initiated actions, and not a small amount were due to both sides wanting to change the budget for a specific purpose. So there are ample, I don't think I mentioned any earlier to change the budget. Every city council, we've got a FinRez on there to do something, because the mayor wants it, city council wants it.
But who can city council move to initiate a budget amendment unilaterally?
They can move.
Or would the mayor have to direct you to do it?
I think the mayor would have to direct me. But again, I would defer to the city council. Good question. I was trying to defend the answer for.
See, you mentioned that, if city council were to allocate additional funding, that would be through financial resolution.
Yes.
And the mayor has to sign that?
Yes.
Um,
Look, I'm
You're
here.
very good at explaining. Lay people, so I'm wondering if you can, in a nutshell, explain the bonding process and who approves bonding and how it affects projects as they move forward. Any points that you feel like we need to know? And this, yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Again, I'll start at 50,000 feet and get down to the. And we have this conversation periodically, both with council members and in the community. You want to do a big project. In my experience, if you're the 49th part of the city in the US and you want to do a big project, you're going to have to seriously consider financing it, bonding, going into debt. As we had City Hall 101 over the weekend, and I said, so. Yeah, thanks for showing up there. And again, I'm painting with a broad brush here, but. And I think I even use the East Tampa Recreation Facility. 34, 40 million, something like that. Got a lot of numbers in my head. You can have that soon if you finance it. You can still have that if you don't finance it, but you're gonna have it when you save up the money to have a $40 million facility. In 20 years, that $40 million facility will be $80 million. Okay, it's almost like you're running on a treadmill, right? The treadmill keeps inclining with the cost. So ideally, you find that balance between cash or pay-go, as we call it, and finance. And the PIPES program that we've got going on, about not quite 50 cash over the next 20 years, 50 bonds over the next 20 years. So we get to have our cake and eat it too. But it costs interest. Okay. So first, there has to be a collective decision that this is the road we want to go down. We want to finance a project. And then any number of players are going to enter into that discussion because you're going to have design. Right? You might have land acquisition. You might have a redesign. You got to account for FF&E. Furniture, fixtures, and something else. You got to account for operating expenditures associated with that. So dozen or so positions for these temporary positions. So you chart your course. When will you need the inflow of cash? You know, we'll bond $40 million, but we just don't give Fred's contractor $40 million, right? You complete this, pay you, complete this, and we'll pay you. There's different mechanisms and different scenarios. Do you want to, if you're committed philosophically to issue that, we'll give council what we call a reimbursement resolution. That lets us move even faster. What that means is we're gonna start spending our money now. We're not gonna wait for the bond, because bonding takes time. The larger the bond, the more time it takes to finance it. What's the market look? What are the interest rates? Do we think in the future the interest rates are gonna be lower? You're never gonna get it exactly right. We've been very successful. And it's not just us, we use financial advisors, bond counsels, et cetera. And one of the reasons we like reimbursement resolutions, it's so successful. It lets us start spending our money right now and then pay ourselves back when we bond. We issue that debt service. And one of the reasons I bring that up is that there's any number of steps where we need city council approval to advance to the next step of bonding. Okay, depending upon how we're doing it, if we're doing a reimbursement resolution, design build, et cetera, there are any number of steps where city council can say, yes, keep going, or city council can say no. Culminating in the approval of the bond itself, the official statement, getting ready to go to market, here are the parameters, this is a true interest cost we think that you're going to have, tax tag and title, everything. Give us permission and we'll go to the market and sell these bonds. So there's many steps that require city council approval for us to go into that. I can't issue bonds without.
So after the reimbursement resolution is signed by the mayor, using real money, using cash.
Right, so you approve by council.
Yeah, so privy council signed by the mayor,
Yeah.
using, real cash through an advance. Theoretically, years later, you could come back and borrow against it. Right, or is there a limit, a time frame?
There is a time frame limit and it's typically dictated by the project calendar. As opposed to, any statutory requirement, or anything like that. And there's a time frame limit on spending of the financing too, of the finance bond. So yes, ideally, you're gonna do that reimbursement resolution, you're gonna start that project. And then as soon as you can, again, land acquisition, design, et cetera. I'm sure you saw it, we've got this great graphic now that shows you all of the different steps associated with the project in the city of Tampa. But a lot of it's not happening. Oh, it's happening. It's just that months and months and months are going on behind the scenes. 2 years, so that is a mechanism to start. We don't have to do that. We don't have to do a reimbursement resolution. It allows us to get a jump on that time frame which stretches out.
Sure, but if a project's been completed, then you can't borrow against expenditure as a reimbursement resolution against.
Say that.
The project's already been completed.
Oh, yes, yeah. Moreover, if you spend money on the project, you can't come back with a reimbursement. So there really needs to be a commitment, and I've tried to be clear in sharing this with council and the public. This won't obligate you to finance the money, but it will obligate you to pay the expense. Okay, you may decide down the road, and we've had these discussions that you don't want to finance it. Okay, but we owe these people millions of dollars, and we're going to pay it for something.
Sure. And so after that reimbursement resolution is approved by council, signed by the mayor, there is no further city council action needed at the time of debt issuance.
No, there should not be. We'll sell the bonds, we're taking the money. Now, there will be approvals on a project basis.
To expend, for the expenditure.
Yes, exactly, but that will be the final approval to issue this.
And is that typical that, like, do you ever budget against the bond? Like, is every one of them a reimbursement resolution when you come back later, or do you sometimes say, no, we're gonna use bonds, we know we're gonna bond against this project, at the get-go.
Yeah, there may be conditions that are conducive to a reimbursement resolution, maybe we can move faster than we think, or faster than usual, I should say, and reimbursement resolution may be done. But we really like that mechanism, and we really like it, not because we voted on reimbursement resolutions, but because there is, and someone told me not too long ago, the current environment, it's like being in a pie eating contest, and the prize is more pie. You know what I mean? I mean, it's happened now, let's have it happen. A reimbursement resolution allows us to faster than without, but it's not always the right one. They want it now, they want it yesterday, yes, you
How much debt on an annual basis is there, who sets the debt limit for the city to encumber? Is it the council or the budget or?
It's the council, and this is, I can take hours discussing this. There's a couple of different factors associated with this. We have, again, the city is very fortunate. Credit ratings are two credit rating agencies, AAA. And one, Moody's, not the. Moody's gives us this. County's got AAA's across the board. You got AAA and the second highest AA1. That affords us a great deal of borrowing capacity. Okay, and we get with our financial advisors. Sorry, excuse me, everybody, I'd like to walk around it. And we have a very, very high ceiling of capacity, whether we're borrowing water, wastewater, or from the general fund. But as we will tell the public council and as the financial advisors tell us, that's not necessarily what you can afford. What you can afford is up to the mayor and city council. They define what that limit is. Bring them the data, we do an annual, and that's also relative to an annual and we go into great detail as to what the city's debt, what the city's debt obligations are now, and what we anticipate they're going to be based on the capital improvement program. And so it's really city council and the mayor deciding that kind of thing. You're welcome.
For the group, you okay moving to the other questions this morning? Yeah, we're never.
They're all the similar thing, so. I've got notes that get into detail with the mayor's specified resolution. It's been, that's why, yes, right, these are my notes. I have like 2 inches of words for how the budget process. Here we are, an hour and a half away. All right, he's classified as elected, unofficial, or elected official unclassified. It's established by resolution and has been formulaic since 2006. It was established at $150,000 in 2006, and then capped at 3% based on what managerial employees get every year for the negotiated increase. Now, just so you know, it is not 150,000 going up 3% every year, because there have been years managerial employees did not get an increase, and there have been incumbents who chose not to take the increase. Current salary for the mayor right now is $197,700. So it is, since 2006, it's been a straight shot formula, and then again up to the incumbent to accept, not accept the raise.
Quick question, you said it was a resolution, so by default, that was city council's determination.
Yes.
It was a leading question.
No, I'm with you.
Questions on that?
Thank you.
Right, well, and then council.
Now, council members follow a similar history up until 2024. They are also elected unclassified. In 2024, there was a push to increase their salary. Well, let me go back. In 2005, again, from 2005 to 2007, they were also very formulaic. $40,250 maxed out at 3% increases annually, not based on managerial employees, but based on ATU. Whatever the collective bargaining agreement for the ATU was, That is what city council members got. Just as with the mayor, you did have incumbents that declined the pay raise, so you get a little unevenness in that.
What's the age level?
Oh, I'm sorry, the Amalgamated Transit Union.
City.
You-
Okay.
That's our, well, I don't know, blue collar,
Union.
you got a fire union,
Oh, okay.
police union, and a general employees.
Gotcha.
And you know, the mayor's raise was tied to managerial employees and council was tied to the.
Okay.
And then again, in 2024, there was a big push to try to increase city council wages or salary to something. There was a great deal of discussion, there were motions on this, painting with a broad brush, there were motions made, motions failed, et cetera, culminating in September the 5th, 2024, there was a resolution establishing the salary at $75,190. And again, increases equal to those of the 18. The current salary is generally, again, some $77,500.
That increased to 75, do you know like what that percent was?
About 36%, it went from about 55,000 to 75,000.
And can they get other income? I mean, or either one of the mayor or the city council? Can they have additional income, like if they have another business or if they're consulting, or is it? Are they precluded from any other source of income?
Not to my knowledge, and I only know that about other income anecdotally, I believe some city council members have.
The third question, I think, was how are city council members classified?
They elected, unclassified, and again, their salaries are set and adjusted annually based on that formula. The aberration occurred in 2024, where we left behind one formula.
Mayor is also elected unclassified. Is it the
Yes,
same type?
both of them have the same class.
You may have mentioned this and I missed it, but elected unclassified is a separate categorization from full-time, part-time, or anything else, it's just its own
Yes.
category.
That's on alcohol.
Can you explain what an unclassified employee is?
I'm unclassified, for instance, unclassified employee to, and again, I'll defer detail to the resources department. Classified employee is no civil service protection. And not necessarily tied, and indeed historically not tied to the negotiated increases.
Any other questions?
Oh, I just, apologies, we just could not get back to 2000, but it was pretty, what I can give pretty close. Yeah, close to in 2005, for instance, it was 40,000, and again, 3-ish% up until 2010.
Just another quick question, you mentioned the mayor's salary is formulaic, does that mean that it's formulaic because it's capped at the managerial percent increase, that's the formula that you referenced in formulaic?
Yes, it is whatever the existing salary is, plus whatever that managerial increase is agreed to be, it's approved to be.
So
That, I'm sorry.
there was some base salary at some point, do you know? Maybe it's not a relevant question, but when that was set and what that was,
Sure.
before the base started.
It said 150 in 2006.
It was
It said 150 in 2006.
2000s. Had there been a straight 3% since then, the salary would be approximately 270,000. So those of you doing math at home, but again, you had periods of no increase and periods of income that's not taken.
So like during the recession, maybe the pandemic, managers, unclassified employees do not.
And they just pick up the last salary from the, there's no like time served situation.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, they just pick it up, fast out. Or I guess what would be distance salary.
Good. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you. I sure appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
He's very informed. And the reason we have that.
Okay. How are we doing? You okay? Sounds informative. How we getting here? We learned just a couple days ago that it was gonna be, keep moving. So we're at 2.04. And we. I think we got a lot more detail on what the council chair said, so together I think it's a picture. What some of those options might be, the process that accompanies those. We essentially had two open questions related to the 2.04 text. One is, should the city council attorney be allowed to hire additional staff? I think two of you actually referenced that. Deck. And then should there be a charter provision that sets salaries for city council in there? So they don't have to calculate and approve their own. It sounds like that's actually in play
That's there.
based on the two different formulas, right? So as far as I can tell, that's sort of the first one. I don't want to put words in your mouth. That's not my job. I think the answer to this is, if it gets through the budget, is approved, they can hire more people, right? It just needs to go through the process.
It may need to go through the process, but I think one thing to talk about is the specific language for. The one question I had is, when we talk about this, it seems to be talking about it as a mid-year status, now, could you get your budget and you can deal with all this up front. So are these temporary staff and mid-year staff, and how do you designate they're adding and when they're adding? So that was a question we had. I looked at 2.4, this issue is more temporary, but we talked about it in the context of an investigator, wherever you need something like that, but maybe it's more also than that. I still don't see this as a city council's budget, I see it as a city's budget. I don't, I think we need clarification on that, because, when I look at this, if you needed that $100,000, it's not gonna be able to come out of the operating budget that they've set aside for city council. I don't see that ever happen. So, we get back, we talked about it, can you establish reserves, things like that, and that's the, that would be in the budgeting process. And then the one I still don't understand is, if the city council needed an investigator, something along those lines, and wanted to initiate an investigation, and the money was there in the budget, let's assume this reserve was set up, and the money's there, $100,000, whatever it is. Why must that then be approved by the mayor on the back end? So that's a question I have in this investigative process. Why would, again, the staff, the city council under investigations has the opportunity to do them. If they needed to add some staff to conduct it, and the monies were in reserve, but it didn't make any sense to me that you'd have to go get the mayor permission.
Well, I think maybe the mayor didn't want the expenditure, because if it's in a reserve, they can't spend directly from a reserve, they have to do the financial resolution to move the money onto a.
But is that something the mayor can stop?
Yes, sign every change.
Yes.
Then that's what I'm suggesting.
Yeah.
I'd like us to look at that and say, that still doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Because if the city council under 2.14 can conduct these investigations, and that's what it says, they can do all of these things. There may be that situation where you need staff to do that. And then why would you have to go get permission to do that, which you're entitled to?
Because it's above and beyond that initial.
Not if it's in a reserve. If you set a reserve, then to me, a reserve is part of the budget. You got to,
But that would have been signed by the mayor initially.
Initially, you've got your reserve, the money's, that's what I'm saying, money's in there.
Well, Bill's saying it's your savings account, why can't you use it?
Why can't I use it? Why would I need to have some?
So the question before us is, if we eliminate that line of the charter, that would require the mayor to approve that expenditure
In that scenario,
in that scenario.
which I think is more refined than what the charter probably covers, so we have to spell that out. That's different than saying we need to find money we've saved operationally in other parts, there it's in.
I think we should, I understand what you're trying to do, and I think that we do need to get to that. I would be concerned with jumping to strike through and not speaking to intent, because I think striking that doesn't necessarily change the fact that the mayor has to sign every financial resolution, and I believe that this would trigger one. So just because that specific provision is required,
Good point.
and that's
I don't
that's
think
that's the intent.
But you understand what I'm trying to get to.
Hold on, guys, Ashley, go ahead.
Okay, so the way I read it is, however, such other positions must be approved by an affirmative vote, no fewer than 5 members. Council funds for such positions must be found in the city council's budget, and any additional costs thereof must be approved by the mayor. So if the way I read it, this is our budget here, we got funds in it. If I wanna hire somebody, I have access to this piggy bank, it's already in our funds, that's what I'm, way I'm reading it, if I need an additional, then I need to ask permission to get from this fund over here. That's the way I'm reading it, I'm not reading it as, I wanna use my operational funds, so he's saying that our operational funds
The
are.
operational funds, what I heard him say, they're all accounted for. There's X number of dollars in there to pay salaries and all of it, so there is no extra money in that budget, because I asked.
Well, that's why I asked.
Is there extra money to go out and get that $100,000? No, it's not in the designated funds for city.
City council.
No, it's not there, so it's all additional funds if they decide they're gonna, you know, how often that would have come up.
But you're saying if it's within the city council cost center or department, within internal to their department of the budget, does the mayor have to approve?
Right, so I'm reading this.
From one account to another.
Right.
But all of the.
Go ahead.
I feel like we let Dennis go too soon. Because I feel like we're getting into semantics, and semantics isn't the right word. We're getting into technical questions of how a budget amendment is done. And right now, it's my understanding, and it could be wrong, that both the mayor and city council have to approve changes of allocation. So if the mayor has a reserve and she wants to move it, she has to go to city council. And if the city council has something in reserve, they have to go to the mayor. Everybody has to go to each other. That's the essence of how the budget works. It's not a particular control thing to stop them from hiring something. It's the essence of how the budget allocations work. And I feel like if we're not clear on that, and I could be wrong, then we let Dennis go too fast.
And the reason why I was trying to overly frame your statement, I apologize for that, is because a reserve is not allocated. It has to be allocated. It was not just because it's in a reserve account.
appropriated, right?
It's a, yeah, it's
It's looking at access.
no one's tied it to an expenditure yet. That's why it needs to have the mayor's signature. as well.
Same as a hurricane fund would be.
Even if it's already tied associated with.
But the
That would be my.
everybody's right.
Yeah.
I think what you said is completely 100% right. And also what I hear what you saying is, and I'm gonna say I could be wrong on that one. But I think you're right as well. If it's over and above, yeah, you've got to get authority of the mayor, but if it's not allocated by technical things of how the budget works.
Yeah.
Everybody has to approve it. Just like if the mayor wants to go to her reserve, she can't just be like, I thought. No,
But then you say, if the city council wants to do an investigation. And it's gonna cost a nickel over that internal budget. They can't do their own investigation unless the mayor signs off on the financial allocation. And that's where I'm having a disconnect with, because that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. If you've given the city council the authority to conduct an investigation. Well, I can't if you don't allow me, and that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Do you think the opposite makes sense?
Well,
That the mayor,
The mayor
in
wants-
order to take money out of this hurricane fund and spend it on debris removal. Needs city council to approve.
that's fairly different than this. There's a specific provision that says I'm entitled to go do investigations.
Right.
Well, then I'm really not. I'm only entitled to, 214 should say, I'm only entitled to investigations if the mayor says so. No offense.
Or that you budgeted.
I just-
Or that it's absolutely.
It's pre-budgeted during the game.
It has a pre-budget for contingency.
Yeah,
I don't know if it is.
Right.
I'm also not prepared to write a blank check either.
I wouldn't either.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that was why I was asking him the formulary that they put to create the operating budget for the city council, which I think we need to understand that, because is it based on salaries and positions and they get a 10% a year? Because then you could create an extra $50,000 in there.
That's what I'm
That they have to be accountable to spending.
It sounds like they're just doing, they're not doing zero base, they're just taking the prior year.
But they can't spend it.
They do a small
But they also,
increase.
but they also said they did 191, what are these,
Yeah.
thin reds, so
Yeah.
they're both making a 10% change on a $2 billion budget is a lot.
Right. Good, okay, good.
Steven, you started to touch on this. Good, on the initiation of the budget, city council say, we're gonna create a investigative fund within our budget of $100,000. The mayor would have to approve that, right? But what did you say about it's unallocated to a specific position?
Well, a budget is revenue and an expenditure tied together.
Right,
And it's constrained by the available revenues. You can't have a budget that says I'm gonna spend all this money on all this stuff, but then not tie it back to reasonable revenues.
but the city council has the right to conduct an investigation and hire people to assist with that investigation. And so at the onset of the budget, they could say, we wanna make sure we put $100,000 in this investigative bucket. That's a revenue and an expense. And if they don't use it, then it could be allocated with permission of the mayor for something else. I mean, that's what it, am I wrong? That's what
I
the
think
charter
It's
says,
all said that would apply to that thing.
right?
So it's an activity, and salaries.
So my point is, the charter does allow the council the mechanism to perform, to allocate funds to perform those investigative duties without the mayor's approval would be at the onset of the budget. Right,
Same for everyone.
same for everyone. If it went beyond that 100,000, then there's an additional approval by the mayor.
To allocate the
Right.
reserve, to
Yeah.
create the reserve.
Reserve or not,
But the way the charter is already written gives this authority to council and the mechanism is there. It's just that it has to be approved by the mayor,
Maybe
and
that.
that's where the point of contention is it has to be approved by the mayor.
The mechanism is there to do it. It's that, I think, and by the way, I don't think it's only the budget, I think there is also contracting, which we haven't even talked about.
Yes, yes, yes.
And hiring and firing, so like, if we're just talking about the budget
Yes.
side. And I think that it framed as a hypothesis that we are trying to prove. It's true, and I don't think we've proved it wrong, but we're trying to make sure that it is correct, cause he's gone.
Right, you know, well,
Oh, my God.
Well, I got the vibe, you guys want to move forward, so.
I want to move forward because we were talking in circles. I really wish he would have been here during the discussion to
Well,
answer the question.
He was gonna send us to an attorney though.
He was.
That's what kind of said, he's like, really, an attorney should answer that if it's a charter language.
I had a question about reallocation. So does reallocating funds also have to be approved by the mayor, or that's fine within the city budget?
Mhm.
Let's say there are two positions that are vacant right now within city council, and that's however many X amount of dollars just sitting there. Are they able to reallocate funds if they don't have a secretary sitting at this and they're not paying that stuff at that point, or how does that work?
I think anytime you move money between these different cost centers, those are what we call budget amendments. County's financial resolution here. You can't.
You have to get it approved by.
So there might be a low enough level where you have some authority, typically at an eighth level like salaries, other expenses, you don't have the freedom to just move things around.
There, within the department or the cost center, there's different. There's salary, operating,
Right.
capital, if you have a capital budget. You can't move across those, but if you have different needs within your operating budget, you can move around that, but only within the department.
Okay.
So I want to kind of circle around a little bit on this. Yeah, go ahead.
I get a sense from the city council that there would not be a lot of support for creation of a contingency fund for this purpose. I think cutting to the chase, what Bill is suggesting is we want to do something about the language of the charter that would preclude the city council for investigating and having the resources to investigate in an unanticipated emergent situation that right now, if the administration does not agree, it's basically, you can't investigate something. And so the question before us is, do we want to do something with them?
I can answer that question for me, but I have another point, which is. How many did you say did here, 130?
189, they don't.
Okay, 189. Some of the city council
At the direction of the mayor.
at the direction of the mayor, but somewhere at the request of city council, is what he said.
And so-
Yeah, so yes, going through the mayor, yes, well, technically at the end of the day. That being said. And I think Stephen alluded to, like, we can knock this one off. In the way that some people are talking about, and you still have contracts that have to be signed by the mayor, so you're still not getting your person hired. So the thing is that this is life and this is politics, and so, well, I may think that they should budget in advance and get it approved in advance. At the end of the day, let's say that they had an investigation and it's of the mayor. And she's like, no, or he, whoever it is, not to personalize it. Then the very next Thursday, when they're like, hey, what about all the people who need hurricane savings? City council, who are politicians and adults, are like, no. And then as they do, when they fighting over the budget every single year, sometimes pretty intensely and sometimes not, they go back and forth and they work it out. So it is not as black and white to me as we have a very dark situation that could happen where there could be an investigation that city council needs to do, and the mayor says absolutely no, and city council's like, oh, I'm so trapped, I'm so helpless, I have nothing I can do. Because they just not approve the mayor's request, which I keep reading the number 180 something, all coming from the mayor, some of them at the request of city council through the mayor. It doesn't function if everyone doesn't work together, and nobody has the ultimate ability to sit there and say no, because everybody needs something from everyone else.
Right. Good point.
So I've got,
Right, because I think,
Good point.
in even thinking about the comments of the council. We're thinking as sort of benevolent objectives, but we don't know what those situations could be.
Yeah.
We don't know. Those are those eventualities we talk about.
And they've had investigation in the charter. Have they ever been denied asking for money to investigate?
I don't think it's just-
Right, which goes down to
Like problem resolved.
like, they can't formally initiate that request. So that budget amendment, they don't have the power to initiate it.
But it sounds like that woman talks to him, but somehow. 'cause
Yeah, it's behind, so
These, I mean, he said she initiated some, the mayor initiated, and the council initiated some, so. The exact specific of how they initiated, I don't know, but I'm just going with what he just said to us.
I need to know, everyone through this,
survey.
so city council doesn't have a line item in the budget, that's what. Mr. O'Hara said, but they have an operating account, do they need a financial resolution to expend from their own operating account? Or can they just allocate the money and then spend it however they choose within the purview of their office? Because if they don't need a financial resolution to expend money from their own operating account. Then
I don't know,
That's what we talked about earlier with national asset, it's that operating budget, it's tight. There's not extra fluff in there, that's salaries and so I don't know that there is any, I don't have an answer, Bobby. But I don't think there's any, any facts in their operating.
But they can spend for those cost centers, they can spend for, that's all part of the budget process.
Right,
We're talking about a separate fund, which is a reserve, unallocated. And no, they can't just go grab that and put it down here, they have to go through this resolution process.
so my point is this,
As everyone does, those rules don't just apply.
if they just put the money. You know, as a layaway in their operating account, do we even need to grab it from anyone? It's already in the operating,
Right.
and then we don't need a financial.
I think that goes against the rules. You can't budget money without without the definition of how you're going to expend it.
So you'd have,
It's not a budget.
what contingency? No,
Well,
we're not going to do. I mean, isn't that what we're talking about? We want some amount of money just in case something happens.
And it
Should we not label
It
it?
should be a professional services investigations line item in the budget every year that they just don't use.
That's what, I think you are.
I mean, it's specific enough that.
That's what Bobby's talking
I wanna let Ken.
Let me see, but
I think what we heard from council is the fact that they don't want to set up a separate line item today.
Is that, I hear that from,
The chair.
okay, well, I said, it's for,
Yeah, that they have historically not set up a separate line item in the overall budget for these kind of actions. And that's political more than anything else, as far as how much money you're spending and how much you have to collect as taxes to raise it. For all of you, the question is, what do you want to amend in terms of the charter if you feel there's a hole here? If you want to require council to have a contingency, if you want them to have investigative funds, if you want something along those lines. Today, the council could do this on their own and the budget part of the budget process and be able to handle it. It's a question for you as to whether or not you want to require that be done. Because that's the, but when you're coming down to it, it's what do you want to propose back to council that they should change in the chart?
So council could add that contingency in the budget, and then just to clarify, Stephen, what were you mentioning? Regarding, it wouldn't be allowed to do that?
If I may, I think what you were describing is they would have to allocate the funds as part of the budget. It would not be we're using just the terminology, it wouldn't be a reserve fund. It would be an allocated line item for investigative services. Now, they have to also deal with, do they bring someone on board that's on standby, so there's already a contract that can then be denied by the mayor, should the mayor not sign the contract. I mean, there's a lot of mechanisms to it depending on what you're trying to accomplish. But for this group, it's really, do you want to mandate this in the charter?
if the city council is not interested, I think the only way you get there on this would be to have a specific line item within the city council. And if they're not interested in doing that, you know, for the life of me, I don't understand why. But if they're not, then we're running our heads into the wall because, you know, they ultimately are gonna tell us.
Some of them don't.
Well, they're not anyhow, so I think it kind of ends right there. If the city council has spoken and they're not interested in this, then, you know, we may have spent the last 9 minutes.
My recollection was, and it's not, I'm not saying you're correct, my recollection was that. The correction or the clarification that was provided was that it was about mid-year changes.
Correct.
Not that it was about not wanting to establish a pot of money or. But again, it's.
Right, I mean, well, it started this year, and then when we talked about mid-year, that seemed to be a real challenge to get anything done mid-year. Right? And then so it reverted back to say, you know, at least in my mind, okay, how can we sell it on the front end? Let's be sure, let's do it up front. The line item that you're talking about, and it seems like that is now what we'll be told they're not interested in. And I don't know that there's any mid-year fix to this, so.
The mid-year piece was a reaction to the fact they don't want to do it. Right, and should they have another opportunity to realign the budget without mayor consent in mid-year. And that's what the charter change could be, because then you're realigning the duties and the roles. Right now, the charter assumes this is one city of Tampa, they have to both approve when you're making changes to that. But
So I don't understand it. If there's allocated funding to the side as a line item in the budget, some hypothetical council in the future says we want an investigations line item. I don't understand how that closes the gap we've identified where they would, to access that funding, wouldn't they still need a financial resolution signed by the mayor?
No, there was a specific line item that said you had $100,000 a year to conduct investigations at the 2.1
Well, but it does go through the mayor either way.
Right.
Whether it's.
On the front,
the front necessarily later on.
this conversation drifted to fixing it on the front end.
That's right.
And that's, I toyed with this today, Red, you know, was playing with it, but it's all contemplating fixing it on the front end, not mid-year saying, okay, now. We have this investigation we'd like to do.
Right.
Now where do we, I don't know what the fix is mid-year.
Yeah, that because of
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Does that make sense?
So just to maybe throw another wrinkle in here, or reveal how much I don't know about this. If they were to expend funding from that allocated fund, let's say hypothetically it exists. And they want to contract with a law firm to enact, or to get that contract through, wouldn't they still need a signature from the mayor for that contract anyway, or?
I guess, it's a contract
So there's no
I think that was-
procurement, right?
Well, that's
Procurement.
that is how the
Shares on the-
charter is set up today. That's the question for all of you. Do you want to propose an amendment to the charter to give sole power to the council in those kind of situations? That's the mechanism for all of you to decide, is that where you wanna go with this kind of concept, because that's what it would require. We can come up with any kind of charter language,
Yeah,
to send back to council, it's really, today it's set up that both sides get that push and pull as the politics up.
when I started today with asking those questions, and I had contemplated fixing it on the front. I had no thoughts or ideas trying to fix it on the midstream, because to me, that's, I don't know how you're ever gonna get resolutions on that would anyway make it to city council. And I mean, I think this, that's gonna be a tough one. If anyone's got a good idea on how to fix that, let me know. I don't know.
We're kind of reading the room, are most of us wanting to change it to allow for more unilateral authority in this case? Or are we just intellectually trying to understand? I think that's the question.
Unilateral, midterm, midstream.
When I say,
No, my fix was do it on the front end, have a specific line item, $100,000, and I can access and use it.
which is the process that's there today, but they're not availing themselves, it sounds like.
And they don't want to.
Right.
And so they're not gonna do it, so okay, they don't want the short-term fix, upfront fix, then
Yeah, I just have a
They
suggestion.
don't wanna.
You don't need the midterm
investigate
fix
it
as
long.
much if you do it.
you don't need a midterm fix, you have it on the front.
Unless you move that much.
That's with that budget, then yeah, okay, if you move that budget.
The question for all of you is, do you wanna mandate
Mandate what?
that they have to have this fund by charter? Because that's what you're all looking at. Right now, they have,
That's
they have,
suggesting that. I'm not
yeah, they have
suggesting
those
that.
options. It's just in terms of what you can recommend.
I assume they would want it, they make, when we do budgets and business, you would always have a bucket here to, but if they don't wanna do it, well.
So what we, maybe add what you would personally recommend in the situation and add something here.
Well, my recommendation is that we just answer the question.
Like, okay,
And if there are caveats or there are limitations or conditions, then we put that in there too, but we were asked specific questions, and if we don't. If we're not gonna recommend change, then we're not, we should at least answer the question.
One on the board there, that's different.
1 and 2.
because investigation is 2.14, we're at 2.4.
But what if we said yes to that, Stephen, okay, let's assume you said, the city council attorney be allowed to hire additional staff, yes. That we thought a good idea, well, where the heck is gonna get the money to do that? I mean, the doors get slammed every time I turn around, so.
Well, but I think responding to the question probably helps.
Yeah, but you can't do it, I mean,
Because
We give you a draft, and whatever you're looking for.
We've always had, yeah.
The ramifications are, if you go down this kind of path, you're altering the balance of powers. So is that what the group wants to do in this circumstance? So.
I want to do it on the front end, not the midterm.
So I guess the question would be is, do we want to allow the city council to do their own mid-cycle amendment, maybe even with a supermajority vote, just like the city council has the ability to override the mayor on their budget amendments?
Right, the question is, do you want to do that without having the executive branch at all?
I think it would conflict with other sections of the charter.
We would have to change a lot, a whole lot, right? There'd be a lot of changes to the entire mechanism right now. And that's the ramifications of going down that path.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is I think if sounds like we're leaning towards no action, that's fine, but I think we need to explain. So we've laid a lot of assumptions out here about how we think things work or don't work and what should or shouldn't be, and at the very least, we should provide a response or at least try to answer the question. Based on what our opinions are, but like.
I think we can, and then I'm hearing that people think, well, if you did it on the front end, had a specific line item, that makes sense. But it appears that the city council not interested in that, so why are we?
Or the chairs, I mean, we often have deep conversations with a big slice of information for our. In this case, I think there's probably more of a story we would talk to.
And
on that brush. So.
And I do think getting clarification on that term, city council's budget, because that term is interpreted. one of two ways, it could change a big assumption,
Well,
could it not?
I think, as Ashley pointed out, the last clause that talks about in the future above that, then you have to go to the mayor, implies that it's the narrow scope of the budget, not the entire budget, because if not, then we're like,
Yeah, that's right.
and you can just do whatever you want.
So maybe that last sentence you did necessary.
So Bobby's been waiting, Bobby, what do you want to do? Then explain why.
It's just describing how the process currently works.
Right.
It makes it seem like it's an arbitrary barrier, it's really extra text for no reason.
I would fully, I had the same thought, I would fully agree with that, it makes, I don't think after this discussion today. That it makes sense for it to be there, it is redundant, but the point I wanted to make is, what I can get past the pith of this issue, which I think is what you identified is. There is an investigative power in the legislative branch, but. There's, I mean, based on what I've heard right now, there's no way for them to access that power, they can't get the funding. It's a,
Well, they would have to sit down, as Rebecca pointed out, and that's the give and take of politics and the, mayor, we want 100 grand and let's do this, and if she said, or he said, no. I guess there's ways to.
But to have it-
Tit for tat, which seems to me important.
that seems impossible, you would have to have a contract signed.
But again, it's typically, okay, how are you gonna pay for it? That's the follow-up question, so do I have to go figure out where it's coming from, what the fund balances are, is there extra money, like. There is a back and forth, I just feel like all these, anything that's unnecessary text makes it seem like, oh, are we missing something, is there another rule, like,
So
if the process is there, why?
I don't disagree with it, but I'm not inclined to support a change to that language in the charter, because then I think it implies a whole nother thing of questions.
Yeah.
Where before you had to get permission of the mayor, and now we're suggesting to city council and or the electorate that they don't. And so I would prefer to just leave it, even if it's redundant.
I agree.
Also, as it's being tied to investigative, another option is thrown out like an impartial third body. Which would be a different charter change if that were to be endorsed. As of right now.
I
is the
mean, they
answer-
did 200 million of these, if they had said they had done like 5 million, then I'd be like, okay, it's not working. They jointly did 200 million of this back and forth adjustments in a 1-year budget, that's a lot of communicating. And mutual agreement, because they both have to sign off on it.
So. What I think is really thing is, can the city council attorney hire more people if it's approved through the budget process?
Yes,
Yeah.
obviously, right.
I think that's what, and the answer is yes.
That's not what that says.
Well,
Subject to budget approval of city council, it doesn't say that.
right, but that's leaving on the fact it is a unilateral decision.
Well, my implication is that they were asking that they wanted it to,
That's what
so I'm not happy saying yes,
So we should say yes,
I should say.
following the current budgeting process that.
Within the current city council budget.
Subject to budget approval of city council. The mayor.
It always has to be the mayor.
I would say they can do whatever they can do currently under the charter. And I would not want to sit there and parse what they were asking, because you think they're asking something, and I think they're asking something different. And I'm pretty sure we all have a little different nuance of what we think they're asking, so my recommendation would say they should be able to do what they're allowed to do under the current charter provision.
Okay,
So then see that.
can we go on to the next one? Which I think is gonna be more straightforward.
With a lot of caveats.
Should there be a charter provision that sets salaries for the council and mayor? So in the future, they don't need to calculate and approve their own. I mean, there is a formula, and I believe those are also approved. Guessing through the budget process, right, for that, so. Is this even necessary? Is this asking a question for something that's not?
There's a problem, I'm gonna call it in the charter.
Well, they took a lot of heat on that raise, the pay, so, and I think that's what they're trying to avoid, is like have. These things based in statute or something, so they're not advocating.
So the CFO said in 2005, the salary was, I think, 50.
150 for the mayor or council? It's 40, you know, not like 40, yeah.
40 and change, whatever it was. 2024, it was only up to what is it, 55
They did a bump that got.
75,000.
before the bump. 50 something.
Yeah, 20,000.
So you're right, it already exists, there already is a formula, but it was so low that since 2005, it only went up to 55,
They
right?
broke their own rules.
The mayor, well, yeah, but the mayor was much higher than that, right? And so what do you say, it would have been like 270 had it not been.
Right.
I think, again, trying to sort of decipher what they're asking, I think what they're asking is like, it's too low generally. They had to make the very political conversation of raising it. They're asking us if we should try to remove that question from future councils, like I think that's what they're asking here. It is calculated, but they're,
Yeah, it's how you, what do you mean by that?
yeah.
And whether it's enforceable.
So one piece of information that I didn't get from Dennis was how we have a 2005 resolution on the books that I heard him say that says city council salary plus increases annually tied to the
ATU.
the ATU, the union. And then in 2024 or 5, whatever, city council decided, the majority of city council members decided that the starting number was too low and bounced it up by, I think he said 36%. It is now at 75,190. I am assuming without asking that that is set in resolution in the 2005 resolution, which has it tied to the 3% increase that everyone else gets, is still on the books. So unless we want to start talking about whether $75,190 is sufficient for city council, and I'm happy to have that conversation in line with what other city council members make across the state, with what other city employees make, what other professional city employees make, I'm happy to have that conversation. But if we are starting with, they are already paid at what they said 2 years ago was an adequate salary, painful as it was, although they were elected and they were elected to make decisions, are they not where they need to be? With, if we already have that 3% built in tied to what non-managerial employees get, which I believe tends to be more consistently raised. The first people to get hit when there's a recession are managers. And then sometimes the unions get hit too, but the people who aren't covered by the unions and the managers and the mayors, they're the ones who get their salaries hit, which is why I think the mayor is tied to the managers. So are they not where they need to be?
Which is also, they ask me, what's the problem?
And if we do want to, if we're saying they're underpaid, I'm happy to have that discussion. But if we think they're paid, do we need to make a charter change?
Maybe we would add something like some sort of a peer review every 5 years or something, so that you look at other cities like size, I mean.
Well, life size are overpaid, so if we're gonna do that,
Well, and our people have other jobs too, this is not their sole income, where the mayor does not have another job.
at the top of the cities, they make more money than anyone except for Lauderdale, which is like that.
Well, I know, I thought that, I mean, I think we're higher paid.
I think they're overpaid, I'm not gonna get in the middle of that unless we wanna have that conversation, I don't really want to have that conversation. But I feel,
It takes the pressure off of them to get to Garrett's point, where they're not making the decision, that there's some sort of a review.
but there's no new decision to make, the resolution's already on the book.
Yeah, I agree.
Karen, and then I want to ask you this again.
It's like the former council, the mayors, I don't think it's a question about if they're paid enough. I think that's a separate conversation, it's just about, should future councils and mayors need to calculate their own salaries? So is there a mechanism we could provide that would set the salary?
Well, there's a resolution on the books now that has it set and has it set at a 3%, or has it set at an increase tied to what the union employees get.
But from 2005 to 2023, it went from, what was it, where, it was like nothing.
It
right?
started low, and now they have raised it. So what are we saying that they, what are we saying? Are we saying,
I think they're saying that sucked politically, we don't wanna have to have it.
well, why does it have to happen? Because now they're set, right? They're set in the middle of the professional employees. They're set where the professional employees are at an average.
What I've heard from council members is to attach it to the mayor. A percentage of the mayor. The mayor's calculated as described.
So are they saying they want an increase?
Say that again.
Are they saying they want an increase? Because the mayor's is also set right now by resolution.
She said 190 something.
Which resolutions are set by city council, so city council set the mayor's salary.
No, it's 150, the resolution for the mayor is 150
Right.
plus the 3% or whatever the managerial, and the option to take it or not.
What she meant.
So,
And say, oh, mayor is $197,000. Yeah, 197.
City council 78, right?
How much the aid makes?
City council makes about 39% of the rate.
They are,
Aides make 109.
but they're full-time, again, right, city council, how many of the city council members have
39.
other salaries? Are we gonna limit that?
No, I mean, but here's the comment, no, it wasn't a question of, right now, it's 39%. To 78, so if you did memorialize and said, okay, city council should always be 39%, what the mayor makes, it doesn't change a penny, it just stays where it is. So I don't think anyone's in here now advocating, let's give them a raise at this point,
but that's gonna put
because it
them,
is part-time.
but that's gonna give them less of an increase the next time we hit a recession.
I'm not suggesting you do it, I just.
Because the managers are the first one not to get hit,
That's right.
the mayor is the first one, when you hit a recession, not to get the raise automatically under what currently it is. So it's actually, they'll be getting less money if you tie it to a percentage of the mayor does.
Can someone articulate the
Well, hold on.
problem for the group?
Well,
What is the problem with this? I still don't understand.
Politics.
we wanted to answer these questions, right, to Stephen's point, if we're not gonna make changes, like, we should at least answer the question.
Yeah.
And you're suggesting the answer to the question is, that's a hard decision elected officials have to make, and kind of
I
like,
think they already made it, and now it's a resolution, and
Yeah.
it's set.
fair enough. Yeah, I know.
Like, so. If they were still at 40% or $40,000. I probably still think that that's their jobs, but that being said, I would be sitting here willing to have that conversation because. That number just doesn't make sense for a city this size, even if you're saying, whether you say it's part-time or full-time, some only work 10 hours a week and some work 20 and some work 50.
Yeah, it's.
Whatever, but we're not there anymore. The hard decision was made, and you're right. Well, again, I don't completely agree with that, but it's a very valid point. That maybe that's not a good use of their time to have that be a political hot ball back and forth. But it's there, and there's a resolution. They have to change the resolution now to
Just
change their salary.
In a way, they fixed, even though it might have been difficult,
It's.
they came to a
it's-
solution that brought them to parity.
And if we tie it to the mayor's, which I think, rings kind of politically good, that's not good for them. They will end up getting less raises over time.
So it's not that the system's working, if it's
The unions
it's
don't
working.
the raise.
So again, what is, we feel there's an issue we're solving, or are we just thinking about it in complex ways, I guess is the question.
I mean, I think similar to question one, we should respond yes or no, and if we feel like that resolution is an adequate vehicle to accomplish the question, then we should say that in response.
Just say no.
Except we don't feel like a charter amendment is necessary because this resolution accomplishes
Yeah.
what the question is asking
So she.
without a charter. I mean, I haven't read the resolution, I'm just going based on what you said, so.
You read that resolution?
Resolution, and I did say, I'm unclear how they set the 70,000 or 74, 75, 190. But I'm assuming it's by resolution, because that's how they take action, except unless it's by ordinance. I don't know. If all of those factors are true, then I would second if Stephen would make that motion.
Yeah, I mean, my assumption is that the resolution triggers. The salaries coming through the mayor's proposed budget with those increases.
Was it 3% a year, or what was the?
So did we answer this, guys?
Which is
Have we answered that?
generally 3%.
Yeah, so
Yes, so now achieved by resolution already, no charge, 80%.
Pending contingency.
Does that sound right?
That's all. Okay,
Well, I mean, with the resolution,
I used to do that.
sorry, what are we saying, that this isn't happening when we?
that there is a resolution indeed that accomplishes what that's asking.
Do we know the answer to that, or? Yes, let's get it. It's just yes. Okay, so just confirm it. Are there any other changes to the language in 2.04 before we do? Go once, go twice, I'm gonna move this. Okay, we already made changes related to. The language of the charter last time, we cleared all of those out. This one's. I don't think we're gonna have, well, I'll just go, but you never know, but smart people. Uses ordinances for legislative action, uses resolutions for administrative. We had a question about what do we. What do we mean by this in terms of the power, like what is the scope of a resolution, and his answer was assuming action taken. By the mayor is within the authority granted by the charter. I don't see where the city council could by resolution limit the mayor's authority unless otherwise expressly provided in the charter. Because we were really thinking like how much could resolutions achieve there, and that was the answer. And again, he gave that to us separate from what he covered when he was here, because he talked about the attorneys. But do we have any issue with this language in 2.05? Going once. Going twice, that's a 2.5 approved. Okay. And I know that's a little dated, so that's the reason why we're trying to catch up. So that's 204, 205. Blue is good, just so you know. Sorry, my back's to you guys, I apologize.
Did we go past investigations? Yeah, that questions on investigation, the 2.14, we okay with that? Okay,
Yes, if it says that it's on here, yes,
okay,
yep.
okay.
The we also. We dealt with the clerk issue and residency requirements, we talked about that at length. 4.01. We have. The definition here of administrative. Well, we have a few requests. Information about the citation program, we run out of grant, we got that information from the mayor, we talked about it. We asked about the meter budget salary changes beyond COLA, all of that I gave to you 3 weeks ago. With links to all the source documents, I'm sure you had a chance to look at that. And then the last was a response clarifying what we mean by administrative. As it's referenced here. Here, administrative, and the answer is. The administrative powers are enumerated in the charter. Further. Black's Law Dictionary defines administrative as connotes of or pertains to administration, especially management. Defining with the word as by managing or conducting, directing, superintending. The execution, application, and conduct of persons or things. Right, it's running the place, basically, operation. That was the answer. The questions we didn't answer related to 4.01 are as follows. And it's all tied to these same things. Does the council have the authority to override mayoral policy with 5-member vote? Since 21. We're on 4.01, yep. And we're on these 3 questions, those 5. Yeah. Okay. So that was. The mayor does not have a voting. Does not have a voter conflict without it, and mayor handling split the conflicts of interest, and should new positions where salary changes above X% after voter approval, require a majority of vote approved by the council. It's kind of related to the others. Those are the questions. Maybe that kind of along with the other one, but those are the questions. When we have these questions though, I almost wonder if we didn't, would we be okay with this? You know, because we get the questions a little bit out of context, it's just getting us thinking, but I don't know that we've been well articulated on properties, no.
Are these new questions?
Yeah, I thought
Those are
they were.
questions, I thought we did all this before.
These are all the questions we just expressly answered, we talked about, but we didn't land on an answer.
We had a lot of discussion about number 3, but I think the speaking point is at least 5 members. I think everybody kind of agreed. At least 5 members, no, that's not a high enough threshold to override.
I think we were at number 3, I wanna make sure.
Yeah.
I'm personally not, but just gotta know, we gotta know, we gotta know. We gotta know.
Yeah, I can get it to another section. Okay.
And that's voting on policies, executive orders.
So I'm getting mostly no's in the group, do we need to raise hands?
It's okay to be clear.
There are a few more. This is. How should the mayor handle and disclose conflicts of interest?
Wait, I know what Bobby's talking about. Number 3, we were talking about if there's a rogue mayor doing something, we were saying, that's what I'm saying. That we need to have a way to put the brakes on
So
something,
we talked about that.
and y'all
I
saying
know.
no. I mean, yes. Okay, I'm just gonna say that, I feel that's fine.
I believe with respect to four, there are. There was discussion around, there are.
I thought there were.
Ethics rules that need to be followed, et cetera, I think, remember that, right?
I thought there was an annual ethics document I just saw, but.
Question 4.
Yeah, we're talking about,
Conflicts of
I
interest.
thought we handled that one.
I did too.
he recalls the answers, I tried to take good notes on this stuff. I don't think it was.
A set of ethics rules in place that cover that.
Hello.
Let's play guess which council member.
So I mean, you wanna ask Scott to answer, or Ken, can you answer that question?
Aren't there annual ethics?
Can you answer the question number 4, please? How are mayoral conflicts?
Yeah, there's subject to chapter 112 Florida statutes as
Yeah.
part of the code of ethics, and internally, I believe they answered that they're subject to the city's procurement requirements and all. I think there was that one piece where you were asking for that additional information about procurement, and I think that came back. So I don't think there was any new information beyond the prior discussion.
So it's handled.
My interpretation of that memo that we got was essentially, there's nothing in the city manual about it because it's handled at the ethics level, it's a higher degree. But I need some help with this one, so what is the process if the mayor does have a conflict of interest, they just can't work with certain company X, lawyer X? How do they get around that? Does someone else make a decision about that and the mayor abstains? You just can't do business with certain people in the city?
Well, if the mayor has where it would come into play is if the mayor's getting financially enriched by a particular contract, and then, yeah, they could not work with the city.
So you gotta go plan B, basically.
Correct.
Go get another.
Yeah, because any citizen could file an ethics complaint with the state process for your that.
But you're like their neighbor. If the neighbor,
Right, then it's not a special financial interest. Now, they cannot use their position to favor their friends. That would also be a violation of it. So.
Somebody could still file a complaint basically.
Correct, and then, so it would go through the standard procurement process as far as is the best bidder. They put their finger on the scales about it, then that's where the take goes from.
And it's not unlike, I'm sorry. You sure? Yes. Okay, that's not unlike city council members, when they have to vote on a land use decision. It may. They are, well, let's say that, else, they have certain obligations to vote. If they're there, they can't be like, I just want to abstain because I don't feel good about it. They're required to vote unless they have a conflict, although I will tell you, and Ken will probably also tell you, that the state will say. If they want to vote to, if they want to abstain to avoid an appearance of impropriety, that the state is not gonna prosecute them under the statute that obligates them to vote on things.
Correct.
That's at least what they told me when I called. But in general, just because you live near someone, unless you have some sort of financial interest in that. I know.
I know other reason why that was left unanswered, because we had to seek information that we haven't yet gotten to discuss, or you have it and you could have read all of this. I sent it as soon as we finally got it. We didn't have the answer when we were in this section originally. That's why the question doesn't have an answer to it. So we might have talked about it, but you asked for information, you got the response. It's all here. I just clicked on the link because I was trying to remember why I didn't show it, and I presume if you guys have read this, you feel this is sufficient or not, show of hands would be the best way forward, I think, on this. So does this cover that issue sufficiently enough to not require anything new? Yeah, yes, hands lead. Can I just get a show of hands
that what this covers is sufficient. Hands if yes.
I read it, I read it.
Or you scroll down that, just give 2 seconds.
I read it,
What's that?
I read it, don't you know what that is?
Yeah, I shared this with,
Okay.
yeah, this has been shared, with you guys. As Soon as I get it, I give it to you. Here's what it was on. Is that, want me to expand this more? I can blow that up, guys.
Scroll up. Where's that?
Mind the rest of it?
Please read it.
I think that's the end of it.
If somebody's a donor in somebody's election. And then they award them contracts later, is that,
Can we just,
okay, go ahead.
just hold on, has everyone read this one more time?
You scroll up just a second on one word,
This way?
yeah, but where was that line, substantial benefit. Hold on, right here, right, go back. No officer, employee, either individually or through any firm of which they are a member, or through any corporation of which they are stockholders shall receive any substantial benefit or profit out of any contract or obligation entered into with the city. Substantial benefit versus benefit. What would justify substantial versus if that just said any benefit or profit? What is substantial?
What line you on?
All the way to the bottom, second from the bottom. It says you are not to receive any substantial benefit or profit.
I'll speak to the just benefit. That could be the most minuscule thing in the world, would be a benefit. Someone gave me a pat on the back, I said, maybe that's, well, that's a benefit, I feel really, I'm exaggerating. But that would be a benefit, you would always want something to define, and it's gotta be material.
Yeah, material was the word I was thinking of.
Yeah, or material, probably a better word actually, was substantial, but
Right.
Material to the contract value, correct?
some.
Well, it's with so many, with mutual funds, with all kinds of different ownerships of different things. There's the potential for financial benefit indirectly, a lot of different ways. It's always finding the right terminology, and they decided drafting this was substantial. But I would see it as a material, it is special.
Substantial wouldn't quite.
Right, it's special to the person. It's something that causes that person to have that particular benefit, because that's when we're thinking about voting conflicts, typically under state law, we're looking at a special benefit. If it's the same benefit to everyone in the jurisdiction, then it's not special to that person. So I think that's the line of thinking that comes from.
Is material more meaningful than substantial in terms of materials are defined?
That's not in the charter.
It's not in the charter.
This is in the charter, we'll have a chance to change this.
Oh.
No,
Well,
this is
let
the
me-
policy.
I think this was the response to my question. This is, that's just what it is, that's the rule.
That's why I'll
write this better and give it back to the person.
Take it. But that goes back to my question about,
2000.
yes, you guys are saying that the mayor can't vote, so we have to watch how are they working in regards to their conflicts of interest, are they reporting whether or not something may be or may not be a conflict of interest? So I asked about a neighbor, and you said, well, the neighbor is important to you, but it was said that the neighbor's not financially benefiting the mayor. But if the mayor was financially if the mayor financially benefited from this person in the past, does that kind of relationship? Like through donors during election or?
Under state law, campaign contributions are not considered to be additional financial compensation or anything along those lines, so.
But I can't hire my cousin, but I can hire this guy to give me $200,000.
The key is, the contract goes to the council for approval, that's where the voting conflict comes in.
Right.
That the mayor would be regulated under 112 as to not unlawfully using their position. So they're subject to a person filing a complaint if they're doing something that is enriching them personally or inappropriately abusing their position.
You don't understand this part of accounting, so no provision in the manual speaks to the issue of if there's conflict, they just. I guess just don't engage a particular firm, but is that noted anywhere as to the reason why? Meaning, does the mayor or someone in the administration have to fill something out that says, we can't work with this person because of my conflict, or do they just write them off? Like, how does that document it? How's that recorded to say this is why we can't work with this firm?
It's usually the other way around. It's that the firm won't solicit business because they know they would get the mayor in trouble. That someone will not apply for those kind of things as opposed to if it's gonna cause an enrichment issue. So if it was the mayor, if it was something along those lines, they're putting the person in the potential hot water.
So it's essentially a one-way street, it only comes from the firm. Recognizing that conflict and abstaining from engaging in a process.
It also applies to things like evaluation, so if I'm gonna be on an evaluation committee. You know, I have to just, like, in one of those companies owned by my brother, I need to abstain, I need to disclose that information, abstain. And there are cases where people on evaluation committees that actually worked out future employment with a company that's on a list of bidders, which is another conflict of interest. So all of that should be, I don't know what their procedures are, but they typically have procedures to ask those questions and get you to answer those questions and report those answers. How exactly about that?
So actually, this is from the city charter, section 8.01. It starts the bottom paragraph off. City charter, section 8.01 speaks to conflicts as follows.
We quite love it. We haven't gotten one yet.
8.01.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's an interesting statement, because I.
We have a little ways to go to get there.
It's contract form and interpretation.
that's why this was brought up.
But this is the procurement answer. So if you notice in the beginning, it says, it doesn't speak specifically to the mayor, him or herself. Right? Say, you know, to the issue of this, the mayor or dealing conflict of interest, because. Again, it's presumably not enforced that, right?
Well, that's covered in 8. I say we table that question and address it in 8.
Okay, are you guys okay with that?
I think
Yes.
so.
Yeah. It's not, I don't think they're talking about conflict of interest. Oh, it's 8 is contract form and execution.
It's not conflicts of interest.
The conflict.
The reason this here, the reason here is the conversation surrounding the mayor's power in this process around approving these large decisions and contracts. That's why it's in sections, because it's mayoral. When we get to 8, it's not gonna be talking about the mayor, it's gonna be talking about all city employees, inclusive of it. Yes. So, I mean, I
8.
don't know that I really answered, other than to say they should follow the ethics rules and do the right things. You can't force people to behave.
8.07.
8.07.
Yeah, it's 8.07.
Any change that would be made would be made under 8.
Yes.
Right.
So I think what we're saying before is the mayor, like any employee, should follow the rules as outlined in section 8.01. So we have 7.
8.07.
No.
You're 7, okay. I'm gonna write that down. Fast.
We'll table it.
Yeah, and then if we go
Talk
back,
about it in 8.
Yeah,
Just have to make note of it. You know?
yeah, I don't think we're gonna change it, I think that's just something that, you know, people, they donate people. Here, okay, why my cousin, that's all I got. I'm not gonna $1 give my cousin, but can your cousin.
so this next one, the reason why that question's there is because you guys wanted information about. And again, I can click on it if you haven't looked at it yet, but. I encourage you to, because there were a lot, they did a lot of analysis on all that salary data, and they talked about, it's actually pretty interesting read.
Very well done.
So that was completely provided to us. And the question remains, should be positions above X% require a majority vote approved by Kansas City Council? If you'd like, I can open that back up. You want to open it up so you can look at it again? I'd like to get an answer to this from you guys so we can
Open it up.
keep track. All right. As it is actually very helpful. Alrighty. You guys wanna read, you can have some reading in here.
This is a dense one to read off the top, I'll just
If
say.
you have a machine, yeah, it's gonna be easier to do it from a machine. So I'm gonna just let you guys tell me when to scroll if you haven't seen this before.
Find this document, not this one, the document with changes on there,
I don't know what you're asking, I'm sorry.
the other document with changes.
The table.
It's called a table, right, yeah, oh,
I know what you're
The
at.
map to turn.
Yeah, I was thinking,
Yeah.
what-
where
what
did you find
that
that document, if you would scroll?
Under-
What we've been using to take notes.
Documents,
Do a
canvas,
charter with that
charter,
question.
charter sections with mount,
Questions.
question. Something,
You go back to the question.
but you start in documents and then you.
Yes.
City.
Having to go back to the question.
Yes.
Um. What it's really saying is, should anomalous increases require a majority vote approval by the Tampa City Council? The fact of the matter is, all of those increases, whatever they did, you flow through the budget process. Right, so to me, it's a process that's working, I mean, it allows for that, and I would guess if you saw a huge spike in the salary instead of line items, conversation with us, and we would say, why is it so much more? I mean, I think the process covers it, but it's not, rigorous, so you guys have to tell me what you want to do. I think the answer here is no, but I need the group to agree with me. Does everyone agree? The answer to this is no, because there is a process by which all of this is covered, and if it's extraordinarily great, it would be scrutinized, right? Just like when we threw in a big line item for the charter council. Show of hands, the answer to this is no. Okay, that's a no. No, and I'll make a no. Process covers this, okay. And. Okay. Well, that being the case. Now that we've had all of our answers and had discussions about it, does anyone have any? I apologize, it's a lot here. Any other changes before, can we say that we are basically, if I'm not mistaken, got answers to everything and you're leaving us as it is? Correct, no changes to the charter language in 4.01. Or one going twice. We have one more on 5, which is. So I guess you can. Go to 5, we made all that progress. This is the attorney's conversation, I think we ran that to ground for sure. And. Here, the 5.1, this is the internal audit. We were inquiring about the speed with which the mayor would need to approve audit reports passing his or her desk. And we again received information about that. I summarized it here because it was possible to do so. The audit department's internal policy states the chief of staff will release no recommendation reports within 10 days of receipt. So that's released, so we don't worry about the mayor, that's basically what that's saying. The mayor has, for those with recommendations, the mayor has 40 days to release recommendation reports. After which, if he or she doesn't, the audit director may do so. Without that mayoral approval, that's the answer to the question. Around timeframes. So that came up. I think related to a story, or maybe Bobby brought something up about what if. It's saying now we don't know what happened, so it can't be reacted to, we can't take corrective measures timely, and that's what we learned, so that's how it works today. Given that answer, I'll expand this again. Is there anything in 501c we wish to change in the charter? Going once,
So I'll just kind of. Frame the issues the way I see it, so the problem is the mayor has 40 days to release the recommendation. After which the audit director may release, so. Is there any other way, I mean, it's just, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, so let's say that happens, so the mayor's trying to sit on an audit. For whatever reason, the audit director's under their thumb, they won't release it. Hypothetical, just thinking through these thoughts here. So the city council knows there has been an audit. So they can just request. They can just request it and they would get it or no, I'm trying to read this and shall.
Well, it looks like
request the
part of-
from additional information.
Majority vote.
But that's to perform an additional audit, not to receive the recommendations of one that has been released yet, am I reading that right?
If it's final, it's a public record, right? Can
But it's not included.
That's a good point, yeah.
Yeah, that's a.
Yeah, and to reach the point that it's a public record, they can make records with those.
Typically do it on day
Yeah,
14.
typically, if they don't get an audit report, they stop approving other agenda items.
So the release is just a dispersal of information.
Yeah.
It's just. It can be housed somewhere and accessed by request. It's just if it's not dispersed automatically, essentially. Okay, so council can just get it.
And I don't think we know of any issues here per se, or it's been 150 days to get audit, I don't know if that's happened, I don't think that's happened. So giving that, any changes to 501c? Or once, twice? Well, congratulations, we're through 1 through 5, 7 meetings, yay. Maybe a dance in the chair if he wants to.
Are we on track?
It depends how you define that.
But I still wants to get 6 done. If we get 6 done, then we're on. We got 4.
I would say our stretch goal is not, unless you guys become like, and this is really easy, or you guys are really like, let's go. Yeah, it might be, it's a little bit to cover. But we can jump in and see where we go. I do need to reserve that 10 minutes to go over public comments. Because people have been involved in that process, I wanna make sure it's what we're gonna do. So it's 8:20, you can, let's rock and roll and see how we go. That works?
20, it's 5,
What's that?
I mean, what you taking, what?
Nothing. You said we're on that roll.
20, okay.
No, just rock and roll. I said it's 8:20.
Okay, I said take 20, I was like, no.
8:20, no, not. Okay. Let's see how we're doing, and this is. Well, one good thing is we don't have any hypotheticals without background,
Yes.
which I'm not saying that majority, but it's just harder for us to deal with, right? So. In fact, I think there are only 1 or 2 left, like all the questions were confronted. So here. This is conduct of government, Article 6, officers is the first section. And it's really saying government shall be conducted by mayor, city council, city clerk, city attorney, director of finance. Internal auditor, chief of police, you guys can read this, all of these different groups. And such other offices, departments, and their boards as may be created, shall receive compensation as shall be fixed and determined in accordance with the charter. Talk a little bit about that process, and elected officers and members of boards. Shall be residents and electors of the city. Bullet point 1, any concerns with that language? I'm gonna ask you to raise your hand, here's the lead. That's the problem. So 6.01. So. I'll just say bullet 1. Check, bullet 2. Shall receive compensation fixed and determined in accordance with the charter, any objections to bullet 2?
I'm sorry, I was looking something up as you were writing that, but. Variance roof. Or there's different boards in the city operations. These other ones that are listed, internal auditor, chief of police.
And such others, right, it's not meant to be exhaustive, I don't think. It's just listing probably the ones that are going at the time.
Okay, it's fine, because really that, the reason I bring it up because that was a change from the the last charter, if they insert that, it didn't make sense and why that would be, that would stand out as, we have to make sure there needs to be. The variance review board mentioned in the charter. Yeah. I guess that's the.
I mean, it says as may be created, so it's not really saying it must be done, it's just like what the news news. Any questions, bullet two? Going once, going twice. And then number three is a little bit like some of the other items we talked about, like the city clerk and the directors, all elected officers and members of boards shall be residents and electors of the city. You okay with that? Yes, okay. So this is. No changes. So I just want to make sure this is the one where all this. 6.02 term. The term of the mayor, city council members, and city council members. Graded as provided by for this chart shall be for 4 years. And until their successors have been duly qualified. Second is the terms. Of officers appointed by the mayor shall terminate. With the mayor's terminated essentially or ends his or her term. Except the city clerk and those board members appointed for fixed and staggered term. Any changes to 6.02? Ron, Phil, Bryce, to answer your question, actually, we're getting more impact by the minute.
Yeah.
6.03, a little longer, just fits in. I'm not gonna read all of this, obviously, this is appointment. So the mayor within 90 days after taking office. Or after a vacancy shall exist, shall nominate and submit to the city council. For appointment by no fewer than 4 votes of the entire council. Heads of departments and any administrative personnel with administrative authority or responsibility equal to or greater than that. Of the department. Head. That's, I don't wanna just keep reading all of them. Thoughts on 6.03 bullet 1, any discussion items there? Concerns, issues we don't know about, we need to know about?
I have a point of discussion, so that was, I think the sole. Recommendation for change from the administration was the language in that first bullet point in 6.03. Looking through to find that document, I thought I had it printed out. The legal department and the administration, but essentially this would undo the charter amendment the council had passed in 23 or 24. That resulted in this language that we have here, first bullet.
So Bob, there's a question from the mayors, and that's not, that's not the question, should each of the appointments, that's not the question, Bob?
That's the question from council. I think the legal department offered different language for bullet point
We should
one.
see that, what is it, what they propose?
Yeah, I don't know.
Provided it in the it is in the SharePoint because they provided it to you. And I think it was emailed out. Try to find it real quick.
City admin charter recommendation.
Want to see it?
If you find it, let me know, and I'll bring it up.
I found it, but I don't know where I found it.
They should
Can you
be,
read it to us?
Yeah.
is there a URL for that? That's not maybe.
City attorney.
Okay.
As requested. Blah, 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 blah.
Can you?
Copy and paste it into that?
Yes, I can see that.
City attorney memo reading and
Okay.
I'm sorry, I was clicking so fast with a bunch of different things, I
Let
didn't.
me see if I can find it.
I have it.
This is the live document, can you take this link and drop it into the live document?
No, oh. I don't have that capability. I'm not hostile if you wanna come do it on.
It's a different.
Yes, technically, it's not that I don't want to, it's I have no idea how we do that.
Remind him to try to
Find out.
Yeah, copy, and then go to that document where he has up there.
The reason I bring it up is just to, it was offered to us, and I think we should talk about it.
Bear with me, guys.
Okay, she just dropped it in.
Where is it, right here, yeah, that should be it, I think.
I'm trying to actually share this, I don't know where.
No, you can- wait, just tell me how to spell it.
Discussion.
Okay,
Onset of just the
Okay, one exception, specifically, the administration recommends that the change made in 2023 to section 603 regarding the appointment of department heads be revised, returned to its original language, i.e. giving. Right, giving the mayor the power to appoint and the city council the power to confirm the appointment of department head. The administration believes that the 2023 amendment was limited the mayor's power by saying that the mayor may nominate. But the city council must appoint such a personnel would detrimentally impact future administrations, making it more difficult for the next mayors to recruit and hire their administrative staff. Period.
Basically a case to remove the provision that 4 votes. That the council must approve by 4 votes.
Yeah.
No, just
The change was,
You're semantic.
but important enough to put before the voters and have them change, although I don't necessarily disagree with you. That instead of the mayor appointing and city council confirming, the mayor just nominates and city council appoints.
We all here were nominated by members of the city council, but appointed by entire city council. That's.
It's out there, if you ever need it, then if you're.
Oh, yes, it's hard.
People,
What's the name of the document?
Let me see if I
If
can.
you go into this document and it's got magically someone.
I actually put it there.
Does it give a reason why that would be detrimental to a future administration? Does it say it there?
Well. Through the legal department, the administration stated that their reason was. That they believe the amendment, which limited the mayor's power by stating the mayor may nominate, but city council's point. Will detrimentally impact future administrations, make it more difficult for the next mayors to recruit and hire their administrative staff. Being as when people are looking about where they are going to work and you're like, I'd like to work in this administration, I am a finance genius. And the mayor's like, I can't appoint you, subject to confirmation, I can only nominate you and we'll see what these 7 other people say.
a little less impactful if you look at the job, I guess.
But important to city council to move forward the change. I'm sorry.
So does that, I mean. Functionally, is there a difference? And I guess when I ask that, I mean, can they start working and be paid until they're confirmed?
Right. I mean, you're,
That's a good question. Confirmation was a part of just the language, right?
You have to ask the lawyer.
Going to back like this, yeah.
So
Nomination.
nomination sounds like, you know.
Right, a nomination would not include
Yeah.
the
But then what do they do with the interim? I'm sorry, I
I
didn't
think it's two things, it's. The permanent position, that hiring process is separate from the interim process, so you can be both designated interim appointed, but also the nominee of the permanent.
That can be the same person wearing dual hat.
It doesn't appear,
There's no limit on that, and the trick with the interim is that it has a time limit on it.
Oh, so so what it says now. I'm sorry, I just jumped.
Go.
Okay. I'm trying to be better. So the mayor. Within 90 days nominates and submits to city council for appointment. If they're appointed, great. If they're not appointed, and city council has 15 days to appoint or disapprove. And if they don't. Then the mayor within 90 days thereafter shall submit to city council the name of another nominee. The mayor may make an interim appointment. That's your Stephen.
I just want to question is. Is this prompted by something that's happened? Is this okay?
sorry, it says the mayor may make an interim appointment of an existing city employee.
You're right,
I'm sorry, yeah.
that was important.
Because it probably needs someone to go do that job, like this process.
Right.
But let's finish.
I'm sorry,
No, that was.
so is the question prompted by a problem that the mayor had in terms of hiring people that the city council that we know that.
It's been such a short period of time since city council put this forward and it was approved by the voters. I'm not sure what the problem was beforehand. But I just, my take is the mayor, I don't know, all this different.
We should find out if there's different legal standing that they, for nominees, or, I mean, I don't know, what's the difference, because is it semantics or is it really different in terms of their.
Can we have our track record?
Was it changed with this current city council, this current council put it on the ballot?
Not,
So.
pretty much, but when would have been there? 'Cause it was
Doesn't
2 years
matter,
ago.
when we decide this to the current council, so the current council made a change, and we change it back, why would they put it on the ballot, right? So just for time's sake, I know we wanna try to.
I think that's a good question. And no one has any data or information about the problem either. That's usually more
No,
important.
I'm just saying, I think the key issue is. It sounds like the mayor wants to be able to designate their appointment. Who can act in that role before council. That's the only functional difference, semantics aside,
So the nominee cannot act in the role. The appointment.
unless they're already a city employee.
And then she can appoint.
Right.
But that was the intent of the amendment, I didn't realize that was what I was voting on, never. So.
I'm not sure I understand what you're saying, so if the mayor appoints someone. I'm talking on
The mayor, I mean, I can give you context from what's happening in the country right now. There are times that the administration appoints an acting attorney general. That has the power and responsibility of the attorney general and who may be nominated to the position permanently. So in their acting capacity, they can do what is required. It may be for a finite period of time. But eventually the Senate has to confirm,
You're getting paid.
and they're getting paid. There are having times in the recent past, because there is a limit to how long you can serve on an acting capacity. And if the Senate doesn't not vote on it in a certain amount of time, then they cannot serve in the acting capacity any longer.
It's a strong memo, my opinion. I mean, if it's detrimental to hiring people, department heads in the city, if that's worthy of a memo, it's certainly something we should explore, but I don't know where to take it further tonight. Or discussion.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
About the basis of the question?
Well, what might be helpful, we can pull the charter language that existed prior to.
I have that. You can pull it up in the code, just go back.
Yeah, but you could have that both pieces that probably you need to see, because it sounds like what the mayor is asking for, is to go back to what it was.
Right, yeah,
Uh,
should we put it up or read it?
Do you guys wanna do it tonight? I wasn't my favorite.
Remind
You know how to go to Unicode up there?
Go where?
Unicode?
I've never been there before.
How do you?
What street is it?
I'm sorry, okay, so. I don't know how to put I don't know how to put it up there, actually.
You think there's a website? I mean, what am I talking?
Yeah, and Unicode,
You tell me.
okay, Google Tampa Unicode. And that will take you right there, and then I'll look over your shoulder, show you what button to drop down to go back to the next ones.
It was in so good.
Can you type in Tampa City Charter?
I'm not even.
What happened?
I actually am.
Take a quick bathroom break and phone.
We stopped a moment ago.
Underneath you, though.
Man.
Maybe he's going to.
Tampa City Charter.
Is it like that?
And
Uni, oh, I'm sorry, I do know, I think I kept saying Unibus.
Yeah, we're very shitty. You guys are very Tampa.
You gotta look it up.
The line is it's down there, what's the name of it? It's like, it's just.
You know,
And if we charter.
meeting years ago when you're actually that mandatory.
What, right here?
And so,
Okay, and then what you want to do,
yeah.
the only thing that's really helpful is drop down here and go back.
I had to serve 2 years. Military service.
That's really what you
You
need.
feel that way?
The newest 2022?
I'm trying to repeat myself.
You did good.
No, it's not. It was something that's important.
Yeah,
I know something.
That's on the right, kind of mandatory service. If you know the service.
Okay, so go back to.
No.
Go back to the left and go back to charter, you're too deep into it. It's confusing, it's not intuitive, go scroll it up. And then click that, and then click part A. You can't scroll down, there you go.
I didn't know they had the older version.
They do.
I didn't know that.
That's really
I
interesting.
feel like my purpose of being appointed on this board is to serve.
There you go, girl. My.
It's the most helpful thing in local government, they did this like 8 years ago.
It says shall appoint and submit to city council for confirmation.
I wonder why the city council wanted to change it.
Yeah.
Because this law was out.
That was not.
I think the last time that
It's
came up
seen.
was with Mary O'Connor. It's just about.
Wasn't this before Mary O'Connor?
They made this
I thought that.
change after she
I-
left, yeah,
I'm gonna fact check if you don't want to.
yeah.
I know it
I'm not
came
trying
up,
to be, I just,
no, I know that it came up.
But it must have to do with what you can do with whatever station you're in,
You say material.
if they were looking after.
Yes,
Does the council vote
Something.
right, that's the material,
Move.
right, the material,
It's the difference
You're right,
is
you're
the
right.
person can start a job as an appointment
Yeah,
and then be kicked out if the charter, if the council doesn't like them. Whereas the nominee just has to wait around until that process plays out and then they either get the job or don't.
because there's a time period, if the council doesn't act, they get the job automatically. So that's,
say go somewhere else.
that's the difference.
and the council changed this in 2023, and then they.
Council proposed to change the voters.
I mean, if they just approved it 3 years ago.
I think the issue, to your point, Stephen, the issue was that. If I understand this story correctly, was that there was a police chief who was appointed, I believe. Was just the acting police chief before any confirmation, just was in the job.
Yeah.
And city council had not confirmed.
And attending meetings representing the city, like doing the job out in the community and council and It's crazy.
Yeah, good point.
Which, what is consistent with this man?
Yeah.
I don't even know about Pueblo. Was this something you found, or is this something that was all sent to us and maybe I missed it, but that memo from October?
That's something I found.
I was gonna say, you got
And I
it.
sent it, we didn't ever get it.
It's just so interesting, yeah, huh? I mean, it's so significant if it's inhibiting people from working in the city, because they don't have that language. It's kind of a big deal.
How many hidden memos are there?
I think.
They're not hidden.
This one.
Is there
I
a?
probably did share with them,
You should,
it was probably February.
it's a long time.
Yeah, and it wasn't at the point where we had to talk about it. It was just you gave it to me, and said it's out there, I say,
I mean, it inhibits the mayor from having an effective person running an agency. Or it's a hiccup, because the city council could take the full 90 days and then another 90 days, that's 180 days, that's 6 months.
I think it can be said both ways though, because you also want somebody in that position that has the support and the faith of the city council. Why would you appoint someone that you think they're not going to?
Yeah, so they could be appointed, start acting, and then get rejected by the council.
The old one.
The old, right,
Anyway,
that's how those people think.
you could also argue if you were appointed. You're just finding your feet in that role, but that could be held against you because you're not doing great, right? They're not. I mean, I don't know, I'm just saying, you just started a job and now they're evaluating you.
Right.
And the choice of her, then it's a performance. Versus in the opposite, someone's interim, it's officially blessing. So,
so does that, so that means that they have negotiated their salary, there's a contract signed, and now they're appointed, they're getting paid basically, they've gone through all the background processes to start their job, they're appointed right off the bat, right?
That's how I'm.
Yeah, it goes.
And under the old language, they would have the job at that point, subject to this hour by city council. What they've done is flip the process around, that is simply a nomination. And when council acts, that's when they be appointed.
Going back to the old way, it creates a messier situation, because if for whatever reason, the city council did not vote for them, and you had something that heck was your job.
Right, spent a lot of time and energy getting them into the position, getting them up on pay. I mean, it seemed to me like it would be cleaner to have everyone agree this is the right person, and then start, but that's me, what do you guys think?
It's important we get some sort of a follow-up clarification or memo in regards to that one, Count Bobby. Because to me, if we had the mayor or someone else present to us and they said, this new language has been detrimental to us hiring a few key people, and I mean, I think that kind of changes the
I mean, that makes sense.
I agree.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd like to make a motion. Who did the memo come from? Bobby? Was it from the mayor's office or the city attorney?
It came from the city attorney and it was sent to the chair and members of city council in request to a request from city council that received a file number, so it's tracked by the city clerk. For the administration to submit their list of recommended changes to the charter, so the
Okay, so that
administration,
absolutely relates.
yeah, through the legal department, submitted to city council. Then didn't distribute it further. And I don't think that they did that for any other purpose other than they got it. I don't think they did it on purpose to hold it from us. I think
Well-
it just wasn't, they were probably thinking, I'm sure they said it to them.
Let's find out what
They just didn't.
draw.
Yeah, I was just gonna make a motion to ask whoever sent that memo to clarify it, if that's still a question they have or still a topic they'd like us to explore, since it wasn't sent to us. I think it was in our file, was it? Ken? I don't think that was in the SharePoint, was it?
This
It was.
is something Bobby found long before we talked about this, and I just shared it.
I think that we did receive subsequent to this, some communication from the mayor's office saying they didn't want to change this, so we didn't go look, to be fair.
Okay.
So some of
You have covered this
previously.
Yeah.
So some of these was that memo, then the mayor's office told us.
Eventually.
later on, yes.
Let's get clarification, because the heartburn is the language.
Yeah. I don't know if that's the appropriate motion or the direction we wanna go in. But sounds like we all want some sort of clarification on the
Yeah, I just asked awesome.
Yeah, I think
I understand the questions. This sounds like it's created problems, help us explain what those issues are.
right, exactly, yeah.
Cause you could also make the case that I would rather not be appointed to a position that could be taken from me. Like, I think there's the opposite, like, I wouldn't go for a job, if there's a chance I get it, and they take it from me.
That seems kind of different.
Right, I'd rather get it, know or not know, and you have to put me in front of a bunch of people. Yeah.
I agree with that, but I also think just for a fair shake.
No, that language was wrong.
So we're trying to.
I'll go get this information.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna go chase this.
I mean, like, and also like by issues, I'm curious, like, are there specific positions that we have trouble filling that this would
Correct.
potentially address? And also how would we have addressed it, because we still have to contend with the fact that they wanted to hire them and then bring them to council afterwards, so were those individuals that they felt like council wouldn't have confirmed?
Okay.
Yeah, it's not on the subsequent email that we got, there were materials from the mayor's office saying these are the issues and that, so. Maybe this was the general counsel raising it and it was gone through their process and didn't go, I don't know, but we should find.
But we can change the charter in this spot, this may be a spot we can change, because that.
Just doing a time check, I do need to show to the public piece, so. Yeah, we're getting close, I want to get you guys out of here. We'll do this, we won't finish this tonight. Well,
We're almost done.
well,
We're at seven.
so let me try to work on, so I have a. Summary for, you guys.
Don't forget new business.
I didn't leave it on. I actually didn't. I didn't put it on the agenda, that way you don't have to worry.
So I just love how hard we're making a stay here, I love it so much.
So I wanted to convey this because I think those who take the time to write to us may be thinking we haven't listened. And I don't want that to be the case. So this doesn't account for verbal, it does in some cases, some people have verbalized these in written, others like today just talked, this was from the website. We have 11 comments from six people. And I summarized them here just so that everyone knows that we covered them. How we react to them, I want you to think about, we don't need to decide now. So the first is no district hopping with respect to terms, we've already made decisions on many of these sections. Keep two attorneys, add their lifetime term limit, use independent formula, set salaries for our council members. This one was the need for an independent IG, ethics commissioner, city auditor. This particular former employee wrote a very detailed account of a string of events that I think bears your reading, honestly, but it's up to you. But it's a very detailed explanation of why not having this made it difficult for him to deal with the particular issue. Here we have several that came in together.
Is there not an IG for the city? Because that was one of my questions in trying to deal
I
with.
don't believe so, I haven't heard it mentioned, does anyone know? I think when we were talking about investigative powers, that
Not a
was mentioned.
separate division going outside of the mayor and council.
Here was a recommendation to add districts, single member districts. Ratify department heads via a simple CC majority, allow the council to remove department heads by a 2/3 vote. Have an independent city attorney that does not report to the mayor or city council. This was moved by one of our own members. Have at least one meeting per month in the evening to allow greater citizen participation in the process.
I think that'd be great.
And then increase investigative powers of the council. And it cites some HR related lawsuits in closed sessions regarding the same. Again, you can read, I encourage you to read the actual submission. Ensure candidates or council live in the city before they run. As an example, of Nicole Payne, and remove the city council attorney and have. City council oversee the CRA, those are two different one, and then finally. Ensure candidates for the council live in the city before they run, and then there's one more. This was unique from online, so this was documentation received, if you remember, we got salaries. By someone who said they're too low, and that led to the conversation, I think that was either the last one or the one before. So those are out there, and maybe give that some thought. I'll give some thought to where they may fit, but I don't even know if you wanna pursue them, so I wasn't gonna do that yet. But for everyone listening, I wanna make sure everyone knows that you've heard those and we've talked.
Can we say which ones we just let you know which ones we think you.
Yeah, let me know, I don't need to do it now, I have a sense, cause some we've already decided and some we haven't. Maybe when we start our next session, we need to maybe revisit that, and you guys can voice that to me and to each other. We have now 8 meetings through August, we had 9, we had 30. And we started 6, so at the rate we're going, it's pretty soon going to be. At a point where we're gonna have to knock out an article meeting to be on time, I'm just letting you know. No judgment at all, happy to go to the end with you guys. But we will run out of time, that will force us to make some decisions if we have to. So I'm ready to go all the way to the end, if you are with you, if not, we'll get that time. Some of these are like some of these are going to be very easy. But we never know, there might be a nugget in there and we'd like to talk about it, that's fine. Just keep in mind what our path looks like and take a look at, you know, like I said, I've been trying. We've got all the answers so far, everything we've asked, we have a new one. I have a feeling this will be in play before our next meeting, which Scott is committed to. So it's really, if you just take a look at those sections, even maybe take notes in here in advance of the things that you want to discuss more. That might be good, because we'll come a little bit more prepared if you haven't had a chance to look at it, it's a little slow. But like I said, we're gonna be in it. Anyway, that's what we covered, I didn't add anything for you this, because I didn't think we'd have time. Does anyone have a massive, maybe important thing to raise, I can break on the rules.
Any new business? No new business?
I just have one point of information.
Okay, bro.
Did everybody do that cyber training.
Right, they should remind us, they haven't asked me to remind you, you to do it. It takes
Because
time.
I did, I know, but you know, on the handheld, because I don't have this thing on my, like, I only got to 7 of 8 of the, whatever, the things I to identify. I probably know
That was hard.
It spent like an hour.
That was hard, I thought it was gone. It was like-
But anyway, you should do it.
What is, not only should you have to, it's required.
Yeah.
Ben and I got to do it too. I thought it was like the county one.
It's
You
literally
give me
like
this.
11 minutes.
Yeah, it doesn't take, so please make.
It's every once.
You're gonna, you must have,
It's from the city. It says for.
it's mobile device security, it's so simple. There's only
Can
one
we
thing you
have
can't
the
find.
motion discussed? Can I make a motion?
Yes, but right,
Relate
yeah.
it to-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, guys, we're gonna adjourn that you guys can chat, so.
All right.
They're all about like the systems out of the systems out of the systems.
Thank you.
Until I have a third one.
I'm still here. If you motion to the your meeting.
Close.
Awesome. It's been moved properly seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay. You can adjourn it. Three. Still. Four.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up.
Second.
She.
And the motion.
I did.
Bobby.
I appreciate your comments.
Right. I had a.
I grew up